What? What?
One, two, three, four.
Oh my god, Brazil's just dead. What?
Dark Knight will get that shot in. He has one more shot. He takes out the other tank, and now it is impossible for the E100 to win.
And the Matildas do one better, and it does look like they will be the champions of Season 3. Matildas will take it.
There's the pummel party about to come out.
Yep, and Knight's the first point of focus, and Knight, oh my god, he's just been deleted.
I don't think he can hit the I-7 without the I-7 hitting him yet.
Oh, he can! He's
insane.
actually insane.
Unreasonable shot from Napalmer, but can he get the reload off? Can he survive? Does he know where Dell is? And does Wymo miss? No is the answer.
Welcome to week 9 of season 5 of the World of Tanks ANZ Premier League. I'm joined here by Elfish Guy and Cthulhu. How are you guys doing after last week of competition? Are you excited with how things are panning out, Jordan?
I am very excited. Pilsy, I got to say, I think it's going to be a riot this week. I think we're going to have some great games here on the ANZ PL, so I'm certainly looking forward to that. And look, only a couple of weeks left in the regular season, so a couple of really, really important matches for potentially quite a few teams, actually.
Well, we're getting pretty late in the year for a lot of these esports competitions, so I was just hazarding a guess that we were getting closer and closer towards those LAN finals. Are you getting confident about who you're going to be seeing over there at this point, Cthulhu?
For the most of it, although the sort of the bottom four still hasn't yet been fully locked in, at least for the playoffs. Definitely tonight will be a really sort of good indication as to what can we sort of expect, with the final play day being more so just about sort of the seeding rather than the actual sort of placement, possibly. But look, yeah, at least the first two positions have been very firmly locked in. That is the Scorpions and the Sentinels, who had a pretty solid season overall.
Yeah, which do you think we're going to get any make or break games this week, Jordan, or are you expecting it to come down to another different one of these weeks to see who's actually going to be making it? Like, what are you thinking about the games we've got coming up?
I think Action X vs Panthers probably could be a make or break, or potentially very close to a make or break, because if Panthers lose that one, they go into playing against Scorpions next week, and they're also then sort of hoping that Comets would not win either of their matches as well, and Comets versus Action X next week, potentially winnable for Comets. So I think, yeah, there's definitely a very real argument to be made that our first match for today, which is Action X vs Panthers, If that doesn't go the way of Panthers, then they could be in a really bad spot for making it through to the top 4, which is quite strange considering where they were earlier on in the season. So, yeah, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I think, for a couple of teams.
All right, well, we'll get into a bit more of that a little bit later on, but at least for now, let's have a look at what we got from the last week's matches, the last round of competition. How did you feel about some of these games, Cthulhu? Any kind of standout games, any upsets? I'm looking at Panthers dropping there to Comets, who just seem to be going from strength to strength this season.
Look, absolutely. We've sort of got a big sort of culmination of the Comets' whole storyline, where they finally, after quite a fair few games, they had a few sort of very big struggle points, and they actually coming out pretty big. The team that just been freshly promoted into PL just this season, actually finally starting to take some heads, although maybe it is a little bit too close for the Comfort if they're still aiming for the playoff spot. But regardless of it, they managed to put up an absolutely phenomenal show for us against Panthers last week. And then obviously the big sort of, actually, matter of fact, all 3 matches been big standouts, with Action X claiming a dub, with Scorpions winning out in I wanted to say overtime, in tiebreaker. But yeah, look, the last week has been a banger.
Awesome. Well, let's take a look at the team standings overall and get an idea after those games where everyone's sitting. We were kind of mentioning, you've got the 2 standouts here in this season that have pretty close to secured their spot over there in the land finals, Jordan. So how are we feeling about the middle of the table? Obviously, it's pretty tight between 3 of those teams, between 3rd and 5th.
Yeah.
How are we feeling about them?
Well, I think it's probably a pretty good point that you've said 3rd to 5th there, because as far as I'm concerned, Matildas, even though mathematically speaking, if they were to win their last 2 games here this season, they could still be in the race. They're just done, right? They're playing against Scorpions today. They're playing against Sentinels next week. So I think as far as Matildas is concerned, season is over. Panthers, they need at least 1 win out of these last 2 games. And obviously that job gets more difficult depending on how these results for Action X and Comets go as well. So, yeah, very, very tight. Obviously, hard to say who's it going to be. I think the big matchup, really, like I said, is going to be the Action X versus Panthers one. Comets as well sort of feel like they've got their destiny in their own hands in a sense too, because they've got that game against Action X next week. So it's a little bit of a 3-way sort of, not tie necessarily, but a 3-way discussion, because Action X, they play against both Panthers and Comets in these last 2 weeks. Comets and Panthers obviously respectively play against one of their important opponents as well, which is Action X for both of them. So for a world where, Comets and Panthers both win, then Action X drops down potentially into 5th base. Obviously, that sort of depends on how tiebreakers work out and stuff like that too. But yeah, look, I mean, I think definitely still some really, really interesting matches to come between the 3rd, 4th, and 5th slots. I don't really think anyone's catching Scorpions or Sentinels, and I don't think anyone's dropping below Matildas. So it's just question really is who's taking 5th and who's missing out on playoffs.
Yeah, my dog was very, very excited to hear the whole breakdown of the league and the standings and everything. She was getting super, super hyped for some Tanks action, that's for sure. Let's take a little bit of a look at the fantasy team of the week next and get an idea. You were talking a little bit about your fantasy there, Jordan, but I'll actually ask Cthulhu how he's feeling about how his fantasy's going and what he thinks of these picks this week.
Look, ideally, probably I'd rather not mention how currently my standings in the fantasy league do go, as it has been thoroughly binned. Look, for at least I do end up getting probably the Golden Bin Award, so I'll take that.
Nice.
The studio space here in New Zealand is looking mighty empty, so some decor would actually go quite far. But in terms of the team of the week, honestly, it has been a rather interesting bit of a shakeup, because, I mean, we usually expect to see, quite a fair few of the Matildas. That's not the case. We have the Action X representative in the form of Trax. We have 3 Scorpion members, and even Kiwi Dynamite, who usually is considered to be, well, he's been put in as an emergency sub. Not a whole lot of people really expected him to perform. But the way how he played it, it was borderline just godly on a few occasions.
Well, let's have a look at the player leaderboard, and we're already talking about player performance, and there's actually been a couple of shakeups since the last time I was looking at this, I believe. You've obviously got a Sentinels player up the top there, Jordan, and Critical is still doing quite well for himself. I mean, similarly, like I'm looking at what we were seeing before, where it's like these Matildas players individually are playing quite well on the overall player leaderboard, but on the team leaderboard, things not being as happy.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like what I've said in the past, and you obviously have to reiterate that Returned has been a super consistent player for his squad, so good to see him up the top. But with regard to the Matildas members, I think a lot of that does come from the roles that these guys are playing and the way that the games are sort of panning out for Matildas. Like, obviously, you can still farm damage, you can still farm stats, even though you're losing games, and it depends if you're, in something like a 50B or a Bat Chat or one of these tanks that survives later into the round, which is traditionally Whippet's role. Critical as well, obviously. I feel like you look at it, you say the stats are great, but end of the day, it's just not effective damage at all. So there's no like rating necessarily, but I think if we were talking about rating-wise, these two Matildas players would definitely not be in the top 5 in terms of most impactful players for the season, because obviously all of this damage, all of this quote-unquote impact is just not actually getting converted into round wins. And to be honest, it's just, a little bit unfortunate that hasn't really come together for Matildas, because I thought that they were going to be a good team with some of that success that they had last season as the Conquerors. But, I mean, like I said, it just hasn't really come together for them. So need to be trying to get that damage out a little bit earlier. Need to be trying to sort of work together better as a team and maybe coming up with some better strats there, Matildas, because it just seems like nothing's coming together for them. Even though they've got 2 players in the top 5, it's, quite a conundrum.
Yeah, you see it in a lot of esports, getting maybe a couple of exit frags there, quote unquote. Anyway, let's move into the next week, or this week's matches, rather, I should say, and we can pick your brain a little bit more on it, Cthulhu, because Jordan was already talking about some of the upcoming matches and which ones he thinks are going to be big ones. It's going to be interesting to watch the Comets take on the Sentinels and continue to test just how well they're playing, but Action X and Panthers right in the middle of the table there.
Yeah, the Action X versus Panthers, arguably, at least in my eyes, is one of the big impactful ones, because, I mean, you look at the general sort of standings, and things are looking a little bit sort of, well, spooky for both of the teams, because both teams are still risking sort of the fallout, risking the sort of their general run. And then you look at the Sentinels. Look, for them, they theoretically don't even have to per se sweat about it. The only thing that they would obviously want is just the score the dubs and kind of go off with it. So as even the prediction leaderboard sort of alludes to it, it's borderline expected for Sentinels to win. But if Comets do end up coming out even with, say even tiebreaker, that is already a humongous effort, especially considering sort of the general odds for the game.
Well, as we look at the prediction leaderboard here, we can get a numerical representation of who has the smallest brain. And I thought that would be Mac, but actually it is Cthulhu. So what do you have to say for yourself, mate?
Again, I'm going for that golden bin 2 times. I'll be within one season. I'll be the 2-time.
That's a big title to be claiming. Obviously, they don't give Karath predictions anymore, so that is well safe with you at this point, mate. Jordan, you're not doing too badly, but I have to say that being even with me on my first season of Tanks is probably not a happy place for you.
I'm just gonna say I'm not the one predicting incorrectly. The teams are the one that are creating incorrect results. Okay,
Right, yeah,
I looked at last week's games. I was like, no chance this or that doesn't happen. And then as soon as I saw the first result, I was like, you know what? I've got my first correct prediction, which was the one from game 1. I only ever get 1 a day, right? So these next 2 games are going to be upsets. And then they were both upsets. And like, what do you even do at that point? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, teams just need to be a little bit more consistent. So I blame the teams, not me. I'm not the problem. The players are the problems. But also, what I would like to say is we've got pa at the top of the
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
I do love a bit of Papa, and speaking of the problems, let's take a look at some of the teams, some of the players in our first matchup for today. Is going to be Action X going up against the Panthers, and we've got my man Dongalord carrying my fantasy team over here. How you feeling about Action X, Cthulhu?
Honestly, Action X went through a very, very odd sort of timeline where middle of the season was just absolutely down bad horrendous for them. They couldn't find a single stable game for them. It was going from bad to worse. So we went from patented by yourself the younger bunga rushes to an attempt at actually thoroughly set up strats to what for the past 2 weeks has been a really well coordinated team where even when they swap out players in and out due to possibly the technical issues, they still keeping up a really solid just performance output. I mean, you look at even the trio up top, CJ, Trax, and Iron Guard. They have a pretty good synergy overall. And Trax, the person that was questioned on a couple times, at least personally myself, he actually slotted into AX this season almost perfectly.
Alrighty, and on the other side of the matchup, we do have the Panthers, who, I know they're a big favourite of yours, Jordan. So tell us all about how much you love, why you love them, and how much you love them.
I don't know if they are anymore. That's the problem. Like, I mean, they were. They really were. I really liked this team at the start of the season. And I would say up to week 4, I really liked them. But then they went and lost to Scorpions. They went and lost to Sentinels. Okay, fair enough. I can get behind that.
Yeah, but those are the best teams, Jordan.
Okay, but just wait, Pilsky, because there's more to this story. Then they lost to Matildas, and then they lost to the Comets. So you're going to go from being a team that's 3rd place in the season to losing to the team that's coming last and second last, and now all of a sudden you're having to play for your lives to sort of make it through to playoffs, where it really should have been quite a clean run for the Panthers. I don't know what happened to them in the last couple of weeks. Like I said, I can get behind them losing to Scorpions and Sentinels, but have they gone on a turbo tilt after those 2 results and then lost to Matildas and Comets and potentially thrown away their season? Possibly. I mean, I'd love to see them win actually tonight so that we can talk to one of these guys, because I'd really want to pick their brains as to what has happened, because it just seems like their season has completely imploded. And now they pretty much have to win this game to make it through to the playoffs. And they also have to hope that, Action X potentially doesn't lose to Comets next week, or Comets doesn't beat Sentinels today, which, like, let's be real, Sentinels sometimes drops games. So, look, Panthers, they've made their life really difficult. That's the TLDR.
Well, speaking of picks, we do have the map picks, and it is going to be Sand River, Prokhorovka, and then a little bit of a tiebreaker on Cliff. So, such an important series like this, what does this veto tell you, Cthulhu, about the two teams?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit confused about the Sand River pick. Okay, dastardly, okay, right. I see the intentions of at least Panthers, but look, I'm gonna be honest, that Sand River, I'm not particularly sold for AA, because last time that map was picked, it was a 2-0 loss.
Alrighty, well, sometimes you learn the most from losses, and then you can come back even stronger. At least that's what the players in Counter-Strike and other esports post on Twitter every time they lose. Take it away, Jordan.
All right, well, look, let's see how we go with this one. It's a very, very important game, so this one is actually going to be really, really serious for both ActionX and for Panthers. Panthers to start on the attack of Sand River. Now, again, traditionally, I would say this map has been a defensive side of the map, but if we look at it so far this season, it's actually lent a little bit more toward the attack. So it's been a little bit weird. It has been a little bit weird. It's a 100% win rate so far on the attack, Cthulhu. Obviously, Panthers are going to want to keep that going so that they can start this series off well. But let's wait and see, because Speed is getting a lot of map control down south.
Yeah. That is a fair bit of information that he could gather. Last time he was actually playing, I believe, actually in the first half of the season against Panthers on the Sand River, if my memory serves me right. He was playing on the IS-7, this time swapped over to something a little bit more agile. He's going to be in a whole lot more trouble, because with Bales just deciding to send it, that means that now the M454 player has the ability to cut off Speed's at least harmless rotation away. So now it's more so the call for, guys, help. I am now in trouble. There's a wild Panthers player in my walls. I don't know what to do.
Well, Bales is certainly going to have a bit of a look here, and if he does find an isolated 1v1 against Speed, then that's going to be a good fight for him, but it's not isolated. Iron Guard missed his shot, and so Bales is going to get the info as to where that M454 is.
Problem being is that while speed is all turned away, he can't really actively keep on spotting that whole ridge line. So Bales, whilst being actively spotted by speed, I believe is actually still being able to prevent the rest of the squad being spotted. That is, though, just the double IS-7 of GS and God mode. So, yeah, it's a very interesting sort of setup. As well, mind you, we are seeing, God mode, who's usually, quote-unquote, the sub of the team be playing. So, take it as how you want it. To me, this may only be a bit of a hindrance, but again, it's very, very slight may.
I mean, Panthers now starting to make that move down south. I think this is a pretty good choice. Like, this should not go wrong for Panthers. If they just dump the two IS-7s over onto the CS-63, yeah, they're going to get farmed a little bit by the M454 of Iron Guard, but it's a 3-on-1, and as long as Speed doesn't get out of here alive, then Panthers are essentially going to get a 1-for-0 trade. Bales gets one shot in, and JS and God mode should be able to get one shot in each as well. And that's pretty much Speed up the creek without a paddle. There is nothing he can do anymore. And you can even see a shot's gone through to Iron Guard as well. So this is really good from Panthers. They've identified that weakness. Action X have kind of left Speed out on an island. And I like it in terms of the information that he's able to gather. But like, you've got to recognize that he's just going to get farmed if you give the opportunity over to Panthers. And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah.
So, freebie.
It definitely feels a little bit odd that he didn't, attempt to even run, because whilst he was going to get farmed regardless, but say a mad dash right before Bales completely took the position where he just kept on swinging at the CS, they try to go into the town and use the town buildings as debris to block a few shots, it would have been another sort of way to try to bail out, but obviously then you're sort of looking at the double S-Kong setup. So while all of it may have been in vain, regardless of the outcome, it just feels like sort of Speed's position went almost unpunished, because Action X are now down to only 9.9k HP, whereas you look at Panthers, they still sitting nice and pretty.
They are indeed.
I mean, nothing really tickled them a whole lot.
What I would ask now is, if Panthers were to go toward that 2 flag, what would Action X be able to do about it? They literally could do nothing. I mean, Trax in a super conky might get a couple of shots on the cross, depending on how Panthers would go. But not going to happen anyway, so irrelevant. As we start to look a little bit more toward the 1 flag, you got that push coming through from JS and Bales onto Iron Guard, so they're going to try to find that overmatch and 2v1 him. What they're not maybe necessarily aware of is the position of Gloucester.
CJ only just now got lit as well. So this could actually be quite beneficial for the play between CJ and Iron Guard to happen, because Bales keeps on getting farmed. The IS-7 only has just about enough of the DPM, so theoretically, 2 isolated 2v2s could actually go a long way, but in comes Gloucester that you just mentioned as well. This should be a really good overpowered position, with unfortunately Trax about to fall as well.
Yeah, but I mean, in the meanwhile, Panthers are doing a bit of work elsewhere, so it should still be okay as long as JS can hold this line down and kind of keep Iron Guard and Gloucester in check, make sure that they're not able to push forward. He has decided to take the fight. He's lucky to live on 14 HP there, which is going to prompt the extra shot in from Gloucester. Hopefully that one doesn't bounce. Does bring it back to 3-on-3, but there's a massive health advantage right now for the Panthers, and they have more than enough time to catch up to these 2 tanks. I mean, it's a Super Conk and an M454, both stuck in the corner of the map. They're not going anywhere. Panthers have won the round. They've got 2 Super Conks late in the game as well, which is a really good sign. So, pretty much easy as you like for Panthers. That felt like a little bit more what we were expecting from Panthers early in the season, compared to what we've seen from them in the last few weeks. Much, much better stuff from them.
Absolutely, yeah. A good sort of return to form for themselves. Looking pretty solid. But yeah, the other thing is just, it's the sheer amount of that, the fact that Action X kind of just tried to prompt for a very sort of stationary gameplay where things just didn't really go particularly as well.
He's playing with the helmet on. Like, the whole time?
Yeah, that's what...
I think
you don't have a helmet that you play water tanks in?
Not usually, but some people have advised me that I should wear one for my own protection. Anyway, Panthers should have done pretty well there to take that first half at least. Does that kind of restore some confidence for you, Cthulhu?
Oh yeah, there's definitely been a really solid turnout for the way how Panthers really played it out. Partially, I would have to say there is some blame on Action X for not really taking enough of the activity, enough of the action to try to counter the initial push, because I'd say if Speed would have been a little bit more mobile and actually stayed around whilst roaming around the map whilst still being able to send the pot shots, I reckon this would have been a completely different game. And I mean, yeah, the stats will very much reflect this very case. I mean, yeah, look, Panthers just flat out farm. There's no other way to really put it.
Yeah, it looked like a good game for them. Are you expecting any change-ups as we swap around the sides? Obviously, it's not really the same dynamic necessarily, but how are you feeling? Any kind of underperformances that you could see stand out from the stats there, Jordan?
I think it's kind of hard to look at the stats and say a certain player sort of underperformed because, like, I mean, instantly you'd say, oh, yeah, Speed didn't play very well, but, like, he was just in a position that was naturally not good for him to really do anything. So, I sort of feel like he was left in a bit of a high and dry kind of position by the strategy that was put in from Action X. Obviously, there was some idea behind it, but it didn't really work out. So he didn't really get the chance to play that game, I don't think. And so you can't really sort of highlight one individual necessarily. It was, I think, more of a failure of the setup from Action X rather than individuals playing poorly per se. With regard to how the game's going to play coming up, I mean, obviously, we've still got that 100% win rate on the attack. I mean, it's another one that comes through there from Panthers. So let's not count our chickens before they hatch, right? They make that attack look really easy, but so far this season, it's been a very heavily attack-sided map. So there may well definitely be a world where we go through and it ends up being a 1-1 and Action X look just as good on their own attack, and then that's going to make us a little bit more confident about their chances heading into the next map.
Have you seen like many teams kind of change up how they're playing based on the fact that the attack side is so strong, Cthulhu? Like, is anyone trying to throw any curveballs in on the defense or anything like that, or are they still trying to kind of work out how they want to approach it? What do you think?
I think some teams do quite occasionally switch out their play styles depending on what team they're playing, what kind of map it's coming around, what kind of even scoreline really comes through. Because I mean, with if we do end up seeing something like a 2-0 to come around in favor of Panthers, I could, with a full-blown certainty, say that Action X might try to pull something borderline dire, really, on Prokhorovka, because this will be obviously their last-ditch effort, their last chance to really make anything work on it. So, yeah, look, there may be a few changes, maybe a few more extra aggressions. I'm definitely expecting some form of aggression from Action X, given that it is now their time to really attack on Sand River. And as Jordan alluded at the very beginning of round one, it sort of had a very odd trend of having a much more successful attacker side rather than the defender.
Alrighty, well, let's see if these insights prove true. And look, it is only the first map, but for sure this is an important series, and I know that the players are going to start to be feeling the pressure a little bit as we head into the second side of Sand River.
I mean, that's going to be the big question mark here, is whether or not Panthers can pull something off on their defense for the first time that anyone's been able to do it on Sand River this season. Interesting little lineup there from Panthers. Having that STB1 in is, you know, I guess it's not abnormal necessarily, but it's definitely not one of the most common tanks to bring on this map. And obviously you've got tracks out in one as well on the attack, so a little bit more mobility on the side of Action X in particular with the CS63 and the STB1 in tow.
I mean, remembering the last season as well, we've seen a whole lot of experimentation with something like a Yo-Tank on similar position where the STB1 is playing, where you may, well, either where STB1 or slightly further down and at the B8 as well on one of the rocks, where you could just poke out with just your turret and option, and you're able to basically follow up the damage free of charge. So, I mean, it is not a frequent appearance, but what JS actually done there with that position is actually a really good spot to counter a whole lot of presence around those sort of mid-dunes.
Well, JS just going to keep on peeking around with that STB1, trying to get a bit of chip damage here and there. So far, just the one shot going through onto Action X, and that has been responded by Panthers as well. I mean, this is a fairly standard setup on both sides. I think this is pretty much what you expect from a game of Sand River. A lot of this now is kind of going to hinge on what Speed does in that CS63, if he's able to get a bit of info south, or if he overpeaks into Bales' VZ55 and cops a huge chunk of damage. That's obviously going to be a problem. So let's see how this little engagement does end up panning out. Speed just going to try to spot over the ridge. Has not seen Bales.
Yeah, as long as he can spot Bales, he could actually do a lot of work. Redlining around that position could certainly provide a little bit more of that sort of extra area to really mess around with. But he is being extra cautious about how he plays it out, and unfortunately actually gets himself spotted amidst all of that chaos. So at least the redeeming factor is that the Kranwagen of CJ did not get lit up, or at least with the damage from Goober.
I think they sort of saw Goober moving around on that hill. I assume Iron Guard was proxying him, and that's why CJ's kind of decided to take that push. He's liable to sort of take some damage when he does try to make that cross initially, but the fact that Goober's moving, he's not really paying attention necessarily to that angle, and CJ gets across for free and tries to get some damage in. It doesn't really work out there. Starting to see a little bit more bleed kind of chiming through here for Action X, which is going to be problematic the deeper we get into this game, because inevitably they're going to have to make a push, and when you're making the push 9 times out of 10, you're receiving the first couple of shots, which, having already lost a lot of that HP, you know, bringing the deficit even further for Action X, it means they're now sort of doubly behind, because not only have you bled already, you're going to bleed some more before the fight even starts, because you're trying to get in a position to fight. So you're sort of down a couple of steps on Panthers, and it's not exactly the ideal setup for Action X so far. It just doesn't really feel like they've got a position to take a really good fight, and even to take control of a position to take a good fight, they're going to be losing too much HP to win that fight. So I'm interested to see how they're going to try and dig themselves out of this one, but I'd be surprised if they can now. I think this is going to be tough.
Godmode just flat out just going for disrespect at this point, saying, you know what, any damage is good damage for me. Just keeps on sending the HE shells at the dome of Gloucester. Look, I mean, some chip damage is always nice, although probably not as impactful as just sending like a flat out full on, you know, a full pen shell worth of damage. But yeah, look, you are right here, Jordan. It's sort of that slow bleed definitely starting to show its face, and definitely showing sort of how much it could actually impact later down the line. We do at least see, you know, Trax trying to rendezvous with Speed to try to help him this time, rather than flat out just abandon the CS. But what that did now is that, say Twit, Godmode, and GS decide to completely overpush, well, CJ is kind of gone. and next on the guillotine will be Gloucester.
Yep. I mean, Bales right now is kind of holding off 2 tanks on his own, so that's already a problem for Action X. The rest of Panthers have identified that, and they're going to start to make their push happen in the northern side of the map. CJ, he'll be isolated. Godmode's the one eating all the shells, and that's totally fine as far as Panthers are concerned. He is in an IS-7. He's going to be more than fine to survive with 900 HP on the board there, and CJ just gets absolutely boomed. There's a chance even that this next shot from Godmode will just finish him off if it's a high roll, and that would pretty much be curtains for Action X if that were the case. Now, though, CJ might have a chance of getting some more damage in. Not the case, though, because the ram comes through, and that's done and dusted. So 1 for 0 so far. And Action X, well, I think they're in the bin at the moment. Cthulhu, there's no getting out of this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, a bit tragic, not gonna lie, given just how well things were looking back in the previous week.
Bales should not be allowed to do that, by the way.
Oh, Bales, absolutely, 110%. Half of those actions should not have been allowed for Panthers to really make it happen. But I suppose it's one of those things. Just it is what it is, and I'm kind of slowly running out of the "it is what it is." Really,
I mean, Speed and Trax, like have they really done any damage in this game so far?
Yeah, what did they do?
We'll have to have a look at the stats page at the end, but Bales has got another clip out just now, and only now is Trax going to start making his way down. I feel like they could have done this like 20 seconds ago, killed Bales, and then maybe had a bit of a crack at the rest of the Panthers players. And Bales almost rams and kills Speed from above. He's got another chance to get another clip off. Well, he got one more shot off. I think Bales has gotten away with way more than he should have in this one. Look, I mean, I guess Speed and Trax, they might have had an angle onto the tanks coming up and over the top of the mid-ridge, but either way, hasn't really been too ideal for Action X at all. Is it winnable from here with 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the clock? I don't think so. It's 2v3. You've got Trax and Speed both low on HP as well. And Twit's going to be the real problem. Okay, let's say you can maybe get rid of God mode in the IS-7, you maybe can get rid of JS in the STB one. But are you really chunking through 1900 HP on a Super Conqueror that's about to go hull down? Probably not.
Yeah, between an STB and an S-Conk will basically outplay 9 out of 10 times. Which, but look, yeah, definitely that will be quite a bit of a tilter of a moment. And yeah, Twit does get in yet another finishing shot. It's all down to speed. Try to farm up at least maybe some sort of damage, but at that point, it's all sort of negligible sort of amount of damage to come around in hopes and dreams at this point to sort of find something. Yeah, 3K is nice, but in reality, that 3K kind of just didn't feel enough, really.
Yep. Well, for all speed, going to be the last one alive. 10 seconds left on the clock. It is done and dusted. Panthers have won. They're on the defense, and that is really bad news for Action X because they're now down 2-0. I will say though, even though this is a fantastic start to the series from Panthers, they cannot rest on their laurels because they really don't want to see Action X get even a single point out of this. They don't want this to go to the tiebreaker. They need to ensure that they finish this one off 3-1 at the worst because they're coming back from behind. So Panthers pretty much need the maximum out of today to keep them in with a good chance.
There you go. Get the 2-0 on the opening map. That's probably a pretty good position for Panthers to be in. And maybe got a little bit of the upset in terms of the side difference there, Cthulhu. How did that come about?
Look, I think for a fair bit of it, I would have to say that Action X kind of dug their own grave there, especially in round number 2, because, yeah, like we've highlighted, Bales being able to basically hold off 2 tanks for the price of just his own VZ55 felt like it was basically sort of free of charge win. And from there on, all that the remainder of Panthers could really had to do is just, well, they have the overmatch, just send it. Then they did, and sort of everything sort of fell just into the right positions like the puzzle pieces. So, look, I'll be genuinely honest, I'm still questioning the Sand River pick because last time things didn't work out. I'm not too sure what was sort of the thinking behind this one pick, thinking, oh yeah, today will be different, but
yeah, I'm seeing the Kevisms kind of bleed through onto the broadcast with the "it is what it is" and you're running out of what it is. But I don't know what it is.
I'm basically running out of copium, yeah.
Fair enough. Jordan, there you go. You get some nice stats to look at. You get some fantasy points for Speed, who was in Narnia for the majority of that game. But Panthers doing good, feeling good. 2-0 heading into Proc. Yeah, but you're still not convinced. You're still not sold after a win there on the defense.
I mean, it's not that I'm not convinced or not sold. It's that I think that they still have to ensure that they 100% this game. Like, I believe they can do it. 100% I believe they can do it. I obviously predicted for Panthers in this matchup as well. When I had a bit of a look back at their more recent history, I was kind of like, might have made a mistake there. But it seems to be going well tonight for Panthers. They're looking like a really solid team at the moment. I mean, the setups have been really good. Action X haven't been playing particularly well tonight, in my opinion, either. So that's all sort of combining to make for quite a one-sided game thus far. But like I said, if Action X can even bring this back to a tiebreaker and then even lose the tiebreaker, they can still sort of walk away from that one pretty happy. Issue is, of course, they're moving on to Prokhorovka, which is Panthers map choice. So jury's out as to whether or not Action X can do that. But yeah, just don't want to see the classic reverse sweep throw and Panthers walk away disappointed after such a good start. They've got to ensure that they convert this one. And they've been doing really well tonight, so they should be able to.
Yeah, how are you feeling about Proc being the next map? Seems like a pretty popular pick for a fair few of these teams here, Cthulhu. So it can't be something that Action X are too unfamiliar with.
Look, Proc, I will have to say this will be probably even more of a comfortable zone for Panthers, in my opinion, given that Sand River could have gone sort of, 50-50. Yeah, that's where AX, despite me being initially very skeptical about that pick, just period, it could have gone their way. It could have gone their way pretty well, things considered. But yeah, Prokhorovka, Panthers. I mean, yeah. If I knew the maps prior to me picking, I probably would have gone for Panthers. I'll be genuinely honest.
Alrighty, well, they're up 2-0. Don't need much more to push them across the line in an important series like this. Let's see how it pans out.
Let's see, indeed. Yeah, look, Action X, they got a lot of work to do here. So, we'll be starting on the defense by the looks of things. And that is hopefully going to go well for them. They've got a VZ55, double super conk, CS63 ISM. Nothing too crazy on either side, really, as far as tank selections are concerned. Bales does manage to get a nice cheeky shot through onto CJ, who was lit early. And if he gets out of here without eating shells, then I'd say that was really worthwhile. But he's actually copped a big one back, so hasn't quite worked out in his favor there, to be honest.
Yeah, not the most ideal turnout, although at least, you know, yeah, it's been sort of a bit of a trade of damage between CJ and Bales, so not sort of the end of the tragedy. I'm looking at the setup of Panthers. This is a really sort of heavy brawl style lineup that they have, whereas you look at Iron Guard, Speed, and Gloucester, it's all sort of spread out, so that sort of triple push onto Gloucester, that could literally be the end for him if Panthers would have ended up dedicating that push to happen, because the VZ is nowhere to be seen, so Trax is just only now getting into the position. So if Panthers would have known the position of the VZ, they would have absolutely 110% would have just tipped over and gotten rid of the Gloucester.
Well, they did not decide to do so, and so far have not capitalized on a whole lot yet. It's pretty much even trades across the board. Looks like 3 shots in on either side. It's not exactly a massive advantage one way or the other, but starting to see some map control being taken here by Panthers. And if they do manage to take control of this 1-2 line, it is going to make Gloucester's position a little bit more susceptible. So he's on a bit of a move too. And you also see the responding rotation from CJ in the CS63 coming down off of the hill to take control of South. So what this will probably ultimately end up being is Panthers just in onto that one flag, get a tank in there, set things up, and hope that when Action X come over the top, that they'll be able to bleed them down enough before the resets come through, or when, you know, that forced reset essentially comes through, where Action X really do have to commit, that they're able to blow a few tanks up on the way in. That's the strategy. That's the idea here for Panthers. They've obviously got the CS63 of their own down in the south. We've seen this before from Panthers. This is very much the same, I think, as what we saw from their attack last week, where I remember Bales was more or less in the same position as well. So, looks pretty standard. Looks like something that Action X should probably be pretty prepared for as well. And I actually think so far Action X is playing around it quite nicely. They've been doing some good bleed damage to Panthers. So, they put themselves in a winnable position this game.
Yeah, Panthers definitely getting themselves set up really nicely, fully using and abusing the mobility of the IS-7s as well, which has been working out almost perfectly there for themselves. And now sort of getting into the position where JS is at, and with all the cover that Panthers can provide, this is looking pretty solid for them. Not a whole lot of opportunities for AX to sort of cross over without bleeding a lot of damage, even for CJ. Who will have to basically try to find Bales. Even then, Bales has a lot of coverage in terms of that extra S-Conk of Guba that will be watching over him. So I'll be genuinely honest here, Jordan. I'm feeling a 4-0 to go Panthers' way and once again make me look like a fool in the predictions.
Ooh, 2 tanks on the cap as well, and that's really going to up the pressure on Action X. God Mode got across without eating any damage at all, so now Action X are really going to have to go over the top to commit for some resets, and you can see exactly what that's going to mean. This is what Panthers are hoping for. This is what Panthers want. That's the kind of fight they want to be taking. Gloucester goes over, gets 1 shot in, but he receives 2 or 3 in response, and slowly but surely, they're going to have to keep doing that, Action X, and inevitably, they're going to lose the game. It's a war of attrition right now, and I think Action X are going to have to pull the pin sooner rather than later before they start to bleed all that HP. Otherwise, they're done.
Yeah, I think the bleed of the HP is basically inevitable.
It's gone. It's done.
Action X, yeah, needs to send it as sort of the dire moment, dire try, because 30 seconds away from basically losing the whole 3-pointer. So we gotta try to do something here. And when shots are not aligning, when IS-7's gun is trolling you at this point,
Guba is bleeding a lot of HP right now. This is still a problem for Panthers. The fact that Guba's gone down is now actually going to force Panthers into making a move themselves. JS one shot. Gloucester might be able to finish him off depending on the reload speeds. It's going to be speed actually in the end that will get it done. So it does fall to God mode to finish off Gloucester. And this is, I think, a pretty big one from Panthers to sort of let slip by the wayside. God mode, I don't even think he can get the gun depression off the back of the IS-7 there to finish off Gloucester. So has to be someone else. And in that, meanwhile, CJ and Trax are taking up positions in mid. That'll be Bales' job to try to defend against. Not really much he can do in a CS63 solo. So Panthers have really let that one slip. I would have to go back and look at what the positioning looked like for Goober, but when Goober goes down, this game just opens up for Action X, and I thought he was like peeking up and over the top of the bowl, so he could have potentially played it a little bit safer than what he did, and Panthers walk away with the victory, but instead, the door has opened up a little bit for Action X here to come back into the swing of things. They've won on the defense. Obviously, it's just a matter of time before Twit goes down. And now all they have to do is win one more round on the attack. So Panthers will not be happy with themselves there.
There you go. It looked like it was setting up quite nicely for the Panthers 3-0, but you kind of highlighted it before, Jordan. They can't rest on their laurels. They can't get too comfortable, and unfortunately, they drop Goober there and end up in a 4-on-5. So where do you think that one went wrong for yourself, Cthulhu? Because obviously Jordan was keeping a close eye on how he ended up in that situation, but were you kind of taken aback by that?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, I didn't expect that sort of turnaround, because usually sort of the general trend being that, you know, for Action X, if it's, you know, tilt down, it's tilt down all the way. You know, things just spiral out of control. Things definitely look a little bit dire. This time though, look, I mean, you looked at the player cams of Action X, it's still, you know, frustration central, and it's still sort of them scratching their heads as like, well, was it just one of those sort of the 3-1 rounds where you just cop that one round, or do they still have the chance, the opportunity to go to the tiebreaker? And I reckon, look, it will be, personally to me, it will be a miracle if Action X end up pulling out of the tilt down, pushing it to the tiebreaker, because that's already in its own entirety is already a huge doubt for themselves, because not only they keep on scoring the points, they still keep themselves in the contention for the playoffs bracket, which is kind of huge.
Well, surely that's got to give them a little bit more momentum, a little bit more wind in their sails there, Jordan. They had a pretty good, well-rounded performance across the board. Wow, look at that. That's some fancy stuff right there, Jordan. Jordan, I know that you have probably a bachelor in statistics or something, or pie charts or graphs. You have definitely opened PowerPoint up at least once, and you probably graph your finances in Excel. So can you explain what's going on with these graphs for us?
Well, I think they should be pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. The damage breakdown just shows you who's done what damage on what team and what the proportion of that damage is respective to everyone else. And obviously shots hit versus shots penned. You know, you can see who's been firing a lot of shots and who's been penning the majority of those shots. So, look, CJ, he's fired a lot more shots than most. He's penned a lot more shots than most, but his conversion rate, I guess, isn't necessarily the greatest there. Either way, it doesn't really matter when you're sort of walking away with the win. So I don't think they're going to be too disappointed by that one. At all, Action X. And yeah, I mean, I look at that, and I'm looking at Goober here on the replay to see what sort of happened with his position, because he's in a super conk and he's not gotten a whole lot of damage out. You saw that on the damage charts, and I feel like that's probably where things have sort of broken down a little bit. I think we're going to miss it because we're already sort of beyond it in the replay package here, but he's gone from fairly healthy to almost dead in a very short matter of time, and that's obviously forced this push through from Panthers, which is a very uncoordinated push. Like, the IS-7s are going over already, and you can still see Twit and Bales are trying to make their cross. So yeah, it's just not happening altogether. You're already 4-on-5. Did Action X get themselves a good angle onto Goober? Maybe. I couldn't see because it was obviously on the other side of the map to what we were watching, but I feel like that bowl position that he was in is generally pretty safe, or am I wrong?
No, actually, because there was the VZ of tracks that I was actually just prior to Goober's demise actually roasting, saying that the VZ is nowhere to be seen. Plus CJ's as well, CS. I believe the Goober's S-Conk was actually right in the render distance as well of the CS63. So that was basically Goober being unfortunately farmed from the middle ridge line, plus the back ridge where CJ's CS was. So basically, courtesy of the fact that Bales didn't spot him, that was free farm, which was
Right.
ultimately quite tragic for Goober there.
Yeah, I
was
can
lo-
see it. Yeah.
I was looking at old mate down there in the south, and I was assuming that that probably had something to do with it. Either way, though, boys, we are going to swap around the sides, and we're going to see if it was just a whoops, we gave you a 3-1, or whether this is going to be a bit of a reverse sweep.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's definitely something that you can brush off as Panthers and say, you know what, better luck next time. Didn't really work out for us. We're on the defense now, and let's try to make this one happen. Now, a very aggressive push coming through here from JS, who is just sending it in his IS-7. Really nice shot as well through onto Gloucester. 910 damage, so someone else has gotten a shot in there too. But JS, I presume, on the move got one as well.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's JS and Bales. Yeah, Bales. So it has to be him. Unfortunately for JS, yeah, he just got caught in the hole of the crossfire, and CJ just keeps on pumping him with the shells as well. So this is actually I don't hate the setup. Yes, Panthers have 1k HP up.
They've got to commit to it though. Like I think the longer this game goes, the more hooked JS is. He's on 1k HP, so inevitably Panthers are going to have to continue to push on forward. I like that Twit and God Mode are keeping Speed and Iron Guard a little bit interested. You've obviously got Goober coming down from the north. That's a good choice from Panthers. I just wonder if this is going to happen quickly enough. They need to trade tanks down because at some point JS is probably going to die. Action X, though, are really not picking the pace up on that 1-2 line, and now their tanks in the middle of the map are getting farmed a little bit. Trax is in a position to help on out, but has it swung a little bit too far back the other way? Shots in the ground, not penning, would be a problem for both teams.
Yeah, Speed is at least doing his due diligence and just sharing the HP pool and trying to just block the shots to keep Iron Guard alive. JS finally does fall, so that opens up the whole 1-2 line. Bales, he will actually go for a tip over, so it seems like they just want to execute, they want to push over, which is a decent idea. Now Trax needs to join on the fight, but he's being preoccupied with another S-Kong, so that is yet another problematic.
Oh, this is such great aggro juggling though. Speed and Iron Guard have done a fantastic job. The fact that neither of those tanks are down yet is absolutely egregious for the Panthers. Twit's going to fire one over the top. God Mode misses a shot as well. And it's just starting to get more and more problematic here for the Panthers. Goober, he will win his fight against the IS-7 of Trax, but I don't know if they've done enough here, Panthers, because CJ now has had that opportunity in the back chat to rotate across. He'll take a couple down, and all of a sudden, Action X now have the tank advantage. Bales is on 58 HP, so he's going to be knocked over pretty quick smart as well. And it's really going to all come down to Kubo, who has a damaged engine in that Super Conk and has also been set on fire. So we're going to a tiebreaker. There is no question about it at this point. Action X have pulled off a very nice comeback on Prokhorovka.
Oh my God. Look, I'll be genuine with you, Jordan. I cannot believe my eyes here, man. Because it looked like it was a complete lost cause. And for the two teams to trade out their technically, well, preferred maps feels completely outrageous for me with the way how so far sort of things divulged. And now us going into what was that? What's the tiebreaker? That's Cliff, was it?
Yep.
It is Cliff. Yes. So look, this is by far one of the most wild card matchups in terms of just the general outcome.
Well, look, I mean, that's kind of what you're going to get in a game like this one. I don't think either team is going to be happy with how this has played out, especially now for Panthers, because, look, that's going to give Action X 13 points, which means even if Panthers win this week, they're once again not going to be able to equalize with the Action X. They're going to be down on 1 point because they're only getting 2 out of this. They'll equalize Comets, assuming Comets lose. It makes their job a lot more difficult next week. So already, Panthers are probably not doing enough in this series, especially considering they were up 2-0 and they had 2 winnable games on Prokhorovka. I love that graphic that we had at the end of last game to come out again. The shots fired, or the shots hit versus shots penned. I almost think in this case it needs to be shots fired versus shots penned, because there was a lot of missed shots in there as well from both teams. And I think, you know, this is probably on both behalves one where they're going to go back and look at that and say, look, if we would have just hit our shots and penned our shots, we would have walked away with the victory, because there was a lot of trading going on for a very long time.
JS would be absolutely molding about this this matchup. So look, 110% there could have been things that would have been done completely differently. So, look, for all intents and purposes, yeah, look, Panthers definitely threw their advantage out into the bin and now sacrificed their three-pointer as well. So the maximum that they're going to get is a two-pointer here, which will still keep both, as a matter of fact, both Panthers and Action X in the contention.
I'm surprised Scoop is
mean,
still alive.
Well, I don't know. But yeah, look, I'll have to say, theoretically, this is one of the sort of optimal turnouts so far for technically both of the teams, but at the same time, obviously, both teams wanted, the full set of three-pointers.
Hold on.
There you go. You were right, Jordan. They have managed to, unfortunately, lose their 0-2 lead.
Definitely,
and,
JS is definitely giving me some vibes.
You could see they're not happy about that at all. Definitely very club. In fact, both teams very, very serious in terms of the outlook. I think obviously some depresso vibes over there on the Panthers, but Action X, I think, looking pretty serious about winning this tiebreaker here, Cthulhu.
Look, I think both teams at this point are looking to try to get that tiebreaker because on one hand, AX are sort of coming back from the absolute tilt town that was the first map, and Panthers are looking to try to recover from the tilted that was their second map. So I think both teams are sort of, at the moment, trying to practice their best sort of USA.
What happened? What happened that game, Jordan? It was anything but USA from JS. He was sending it, no return address. You couldn't have sent it back to where it came from. He just completely went for it and ended up dying first. What was going on there?
And I think that's kind of fine in a way. Like, he wants to get a bit of map control. He wants to try to play aggressive, catch a couple of guys off guard. But if you're going to play that aggressively, I think everyone else needs to be playing as aggressively as well. And there was a little bit of that going on from the Panthers, but maybe not all of them were on the right page. There was the Super Conk that still had to come down from the north, took a little bit of time. They really didn't clean out the two tanks in the middle of the map quickly enough. Obviously, some great aggro juggling from Iron Guard and Speed, kind of digs them out of that hole where if one of them goes down, it makes it much easier to finish the other off. But the fact that they're both still alive, they're both still getting shots out, it makes it really, really tough. It's a difficult peak to be making over the mid-ridge of Prokhorovka because you know that you're basically walking into a crossfire. So you're trying to do it as quickly as possible so that you can get back down to safety. But end of the day, yeah, Panthers, I think they just needed to, cross the T's, dot the I's a little bit more there and finish those tanks off a bit cleanlier. Maybe they could have dumped over the top. Obviously, JS was like a ticking time bomb, right? He was going to die at some point. So it was a question of, can we get more value out of our strong side than what they're getting out of their strong side? And can our weak side survive longer than their weak side is surviving? And the answer in both cases for Panthers was no. They weren't able to do that, and so that's why they lost. So they put themselves in that position. They chose to do that. They're on the defense. They played aggressively. They played decisively. Fair enough. But they didn't execute on it as well as they needed to. And so that's obviously ultimately cost them. And, we can get into the implications of that as well in just a minute, but we'll take a look at the scoreboard first here. And look, I know Iron Guard and Speed, they haven't got the greatest of damage numbers out there, to be honest, but the fact that they have survived as long as they did, I think that's the real sort of hero moment for them rather than the damage that they dealt, because that opened the door up for the farm to come through from the other guys.
Do you agree with that, Lulu?
Absolutely. That play between Iron Guard and Speed was borderline godly, and yeah, I'm with Jordan here. The fact that they survived for as long as they did was that proverbial miracle, mostly for AX, because this bought just about enough time for GS to get eliminated, for CJ in his bat chat to get into the position, for Gloss to start assisting with the fight. So honestly, yeah, even despite the low amounts of damage, Iron Guard and Speed, Loki actually ended up being the MVPs of that round.
So what's going on in this series? Is this some tactical outplays coming back from each team? Is this some questionable plays going on, Jordan? What are we seeing so far?
I think it's a little bit of a latter rather than the former. Like, we haven't seen anything necessarily tactically genius on either of these Prokhorovka rounds. It's kind of just been a good old-fashioned brawl in both rounds, and Panthers have, I guess, in a sense, brawled and traded worse. which
What
is
a-
kind
what
of what
about
Action
that-
X
that-
suffered from on the first map.
What about that third round though, where they were able to isolate Goober down the bottom there? I mean, we didn't obviously see what happened, but it seemed like they had like a pretty good approach that round, and that was the round where they were down 0-2 as well.
Yeah, but I think there's definitely a world where you can just change up Kuba's position and have him not get picked, and then that's perfect for Panthers, and they win the round from there. So I couldn't exactly tell where on the map perfectly he was, whether he was in the bowl or whether he was down the backside of the ridge or what. We'd have to go back and look more specifically, but I think there's definitely a position that he can play a little bit more from safety. Like even if he's maybe on the one line, right, he can still sort of fill roughly the same role in that he's stopping the rotation coming through from the south. Or you keep Bales down on the south so that he can light the rest of the tanks that are coming over the hill. Whatever the case, Panthers put themselves in a winnable position and they weren't able to convert it based on, I think, the position of Goober.
All right, well, heading into the tiebreaker of Cliff here, Cthulhu. As we have been informed, Action X have tiebreaker advantage and they will be defending. So how does that change up your perspective on this one?
Well, look, Pilsky, I'm gonna say this right now. Prokhorovka ended up refilling my copium, so we're back on the AX
Nice.
train.
They brought you a fresh tank.
Yeah, they brought me the fresh tank. I just managed to hook it up just in time. And look, defense could actually work out if they play, for the way how they've played against a team like, for example, Sentinels. Take control of the donut while still keeping a relative control over middle. They can do it. 110% they can do it. The issue being is they can't let themselves, even for a smidge, get tilted over, missed comms or getting flooded with the communications. As if say between Iron Guard and Speed, if we can keep up. We'll talk about the graphs in a moment. If between, say, Iron Guard and Speed, we can keep up this sort of communication in their duo, that's already a win in my books.
Now, we had someone in production slaving away, just shoveling coal into the oven to make a special autographic for none other than Elvish Guy. And it has been created here.
Well,
so this is where you get to look like a massive brain on the broadcast.
I don't know. I don't know,
He
man.
becomes Kev.
We look at the sort of the second half of the shots fired versus shots penned graph here, which is obviously the Panthers. So from Bales onwards, and the penetration rate is less than 50% or around 50% on pretty much everyone there. Well, certainly for Bales, Twitter, and God Mode in particular, 50% or less of all of the shots fired actually go through and pen. And I mean, especially God Mode there, like 11 shots fired, only 2 penned. Twit and God Mode are the 2 tanks in the middle that are trying to fight Iron Guard and Speed, and we're sort of praising Iron Guard and Speed, obviously, for being able to survive for so long. And then you look at Twit and God Mode, and you see this many shots fired and only so few shots penned. It's a big reason why that round has gone the way of the Action X. So, we always talk about pen your shots, and that is something that's very important. And when you see numbers like this, unfortunately, that's just not going to be good enough to convert a round victory like that. So it is what it is. But yeah, something that Panthers definitely would want to look at.
Yeah, it's just like Eminem said, one shot, one opportunity, and sees everything he ever wanted. And essentially, that's what's going to happen in this tiebreaker. So does that kind of change up your perspective, Cthulhu, heading into, Cliff, the last map of the series here? Going to have one last chance to lock it down in a very, very tight matchup where, this could kind of change up the standings and could kind of be the make or break game that puts some more pressure on one of your other series in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, this will very much change a lot of sort of positions, a lot of standings, I reckon. At least the more impactful ones that are still in.
I mean, when you get this close in the standings, right, head to head,
yes,
that's a big one to be having.
Absolutely, yeah. The head-to-head is going to be absolutely massive, no matter who ends up actually coming out the victor here. Because theoretically, you still have AX possibly in the run, but if they lose here, the things might get a little bit more problematic. But them getting already a 1 point is already great. 2 points is going to be the ideal case for them here. For Panthers, like we all highlighted it at the pre-show, they borderline need this win like their oxygen.
There you go. All right, well, see if they will be able to get it. What are we expecting from both of these teams heading into this one? We've seen, I feel like the momentum back in the favor of Action X, but you get a bit of a longer break here to either regather yourself, get all the boys pumped up, or just sit in the fact that you threw away an 0-2 lead? Do you know many of the Panthers guys, Jordan? Which one do you think it might be this case?
I mean, I only know like probably Bales in terms of like speaking terms necessarily, but I think this has got to be a big tilter for everyone on that team. So they're gonna have to show the mental fortitude heading into this one.
Alrighty, well, let's see if they're going to continue to drive this series off of the cliff and head straight into it, or whether they're going to be able to recover.
Yeah, well, look, if Panthers do not win this, if Action X wins this, they are guaranteed a top four, I should say. Guaranteed a playoff spot. Action X, if they get those 2 points, they go to 14 overall. Comets could equalize this week and potentially overtake them next week, but Panthers would not be able to overtake them next week. So there's no way Action X falls out of the top four, assuming Action X wins and gets the 2 points out of today. Either way, we'll have to wait and see what Panthers can do. If they get the 2, they still keep themselves in that race to potentially overtake Action X and obviously Comets as well. So Panthers really need this win.
Uh-oh. That is a big send right now coming out of Panthers. They read this perfectly here with the bleed that came already as it is to Iron God. He's the first one on the guillotine.
Gotta get CJ
Speed
or
is
Iron God.
Speed is trying to make his way over as well because Goober is on the reload right now. This is a perfectly opportune moment, but as it stands, this is a big donut brawl. Finally, the rest of Action X are rendezvousing, but you look at the HP difference, it's still keeping itself relatively in the same position. Bale's now trying to just sort of go over, but that is a big misplay.
Where's the focus fire? Where's the focus fire right now from Panthers? They're all over the place. Bales goes down the hill to try to save Goober. God Mode and Twit, they've gone forward and decided to sort of take 1v1s. The comms are not there for the Panthers right now, and Action X are running away with the victory. They've got guns in the game. Bales is going to get a free shot through. Iron Guard will go down to Twit. It's still a 4-on-4 very quickly. Back now down to just the 2 for Panthers, and Action X are going to walk away with the victory. They've got the guns in the game. Twit and JS a 2v4. Even though they had some pretty sizable HP on their behalf, they're just not going to be able to win this one. JS obviously a last-ditch attempt through onto Gloucester's not going to connect, and, well, that's it done and dusted. I don't know what the comms are there for Panthers. The focus fire is not good at all from them. Bales goes one way, Twit goes another way. Uber, obviously, he's sort of isolated in that 50B, getting collapsed upon by Action X, and then God Mode is going in a different direction, and obviously JS sort of playing that anchor position. So it sort of felt as though you had 5 individuals on Panthers there, all playing a different game, and Action X obviously making that call. We're going to charge the 50B. We're going to take that 50B out, and that's the target, and it works out. So probably a better call in there from Action X, and just unfortunately not enough of communication across the board there from Panthers is pretty much what's going to cost them.
It seemed like, again, like a pretty quick full send there from JS. He was right up into the mix. The reactions from Action X, though, Cthulhu, they looked, they didn't look too chuffed. It wasn't like a massive, like, yeah, let's go, boys, we're going to land, anything like that. They were, like, composed. They were just, like, quietly happy with a win. But that was a big reverse sweep they were just able to pull off.
Absolutely, that was a huge reverse sweep. But, I mean, I think the best way to really sort of read into what this sort of turnout happened and, like, what it meant for them is you looked at CJ, and it's the look of relief. Because from the start of, you look at the first 2 rounds, and it is just frustration. You look at CJ now, it's like, yes, it's still the look on his face is thank God the circus is over, but this is a sigh of relief, and I'm genuinely quite curious to hear what was actually said to bring them back from the absolute bin that was their mental after the first map. But it was, look, kudos to them. That was well played. Whereas on the side of Panthers as well, you can't really mention the fact that Action X did manage to win, apart from the fact that as well Panthers, look, their donut play was a mess. Let's call it that.
Sometimes you get kicked in the bin, you soak up all the bin juices and you come out bigger and scarier than ever before. Anything kind of standing out to you in the stats there, Jordan? Or what did you think of the kind of general approach? Like, because that was, again, at least from what I was seeing, another really aggressive game out of Panthers. They tried to go in very hard, very fast. It was a very quick game of Cliff there, as opposed to some of the like more slow burning games that we got towards the start of things, where it felt like they were kind of taking their time, and then they just kind of kept sending it once they were starting to drop some of these maps.
Honestly, I didn't hate the approach from Panthers. Like, if you freeze frame it at the donut before the push comes through for either team, and you say, "Ooh, go ahead and run away with that one," I think Panthers could win that round. I think you put, Scorpions or Sentinels maybe in the Panthers' shoes, and they would win that round. They would have better focus fire. They would have, better conversion rates on their pen and whatnot, and they would win that round from there. But they didn't, obviously, and I think you got to give a big shout out to CJ here. 3.8k damage.
Huge.
11 shots fired, 11 pens. That is how you do it. I mean, that's a little bit of a flex now after what we've just spoken about coming through from Mr. CJ. So that's going to be enough to get Action X through to the playoffs. If I haven't done the math incorrectly, which, I may have done, but, let's for the sake of argument assume that I haven't. I think Action X have made it through to the playoffs bare minimum in 4th place. So, fantastic resurgence this season from Action X, who were, in my opinion, looking like they were pretty much down and out after, 2-3 weeks. Probably going to week 4 and you're starting to say, all right, well, Action X, they're in trouble. But it's been a complete flip on the opposite side from Panthers, who, again, they looked fantastic after the first few weeks, and it's just disappeared. And so they'd be very disappointed to lose this series. So, huge amounts of work to do next week for Panthers, and obviously for Action X, well, they've pretty much done their job, and I think it's now just a battle for seeding.
Very dangerous to do math on the stream, though, Jordan. How are you feeling about this redemption arc here, Cthulhu? Is it satisfying to watch? Are you feeling like CJ is the anime protagonist, and you're gonna go to bed happy after this?
Look, CJ definitely has to be the anime protagonist for this one, because I believe this is actually going to be one of the first few appearances, at least possibly for the playoffs, that AX would make, at least in a recent sort of season. So this is already quite a big achievement. But I think, look, there's definitely a big room for improvement for Action X, because we still can't discard completely what happened on Sand River, how much of, let's be honest and let's be blunt about it, it was a mess of how things really went for them. So, whilst yes, scrumptious dub, well done, reverse sweep, all clinical, it took, it almost ended up being, them getting into an absolutely horrible, situation, and then proceeding to heroically pull themselves out of that horrible situation. So, whilst it looked flashy, look, there's definitely better ways to clean up the act.
Yep, definitely could be seen. As they headed into Cliff, though, they seem to just pick up more and more momentum after those next couple of wins on Proc there, and they got everything together. So what do you think was the key to being able to turn that one around for you, Jordan?
I'm just going to say better mental fortitude. I reckon the Panthers have pretty much mental boomed there, and Action X, I think once they win that first round on Proc, they say, you know what, guys, like, it's on, we can do this, and come back, and they're better for it. So they've made playoffs, and they'll be, really super pumped about it.
Alrighty, well, let's have a chat to someone from Action X after that big dub. We're going to have a word to CJ here. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, pretty good.
Tell us about, obviously that series started a little bit, maybe sad days. You guys went down 0-2 on Sand River, but you're able to recover it. So explain the feels in the team when you guys are down 0-2 and what allowed you guys to kind of turn that around from that point.
The feels were definitely a bit down after the Sand River. We were a bit more confident going into it, but obviously we had some issues as well. But yeah, after getting that first win on Proc, we're like, okay, let's just get into this. Let's just reset ourselves. And we just have to push ourselves because, yeah.
All right, I want to actually talk to you about that first win on Proc, because that was when you guys were on the defense, and obviously Panthers were able to get in onto the cap, and it looked like you guys were in a bit of trouble. But then somehow you find this pick onto Goober, who's sort of playing that sort of Southern Hill role, waiting for the rotators to come through the south. So we didn't actually really get to look at it very well on the stream. We were sort of focusing on the cap, but I wanted to sort of know, how did you guys actually find that pick onto Goober? Was he out of position, or did you guys manage to sort of just find a nice timing? What was that from?
So we spotted Goober actually making the rotate towards the bowl. So then I got the track shot on him. He repaired it, and then Trax got a shot into him, and then I got another track shot into him, and then we just perma-tracked him after that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that was something that we were kind of confused about, because we're like, how did Goober go down from such a strong position? And, yeah, obviously, if you've got 2 tracking shots through, well played. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, Run me through the feels going into the cliff, because obviously you already managed to completely rid Panthers of the full three-pointer. You traded basically the map picks, sort of vice versa. So your map pick got given to Panthers. Panthers gave you their map pick. Was the way how Cliff turned out, was there any sort of expectation of that, or whatever sort of transpired on Cliff, was it all sort of in the heat of the moment, just sort of scrambling all of the strats and sort of sending it?
Cliff, we were just happy to actually get to the tiebreaker in the first place, considering how the series started. So we just went in and we were just like, look, we're just going to play it out. If we lose, at least we've got a point out of it. Obviously, we stuffed up in the first map, so we're happy by taking a point away. But if we win, we're happy to get the 2 points. And then we just went to the thing of, let's just brawl it. Like, let's not do anything fancy or strats, just take the fight.
Awesome. So how are you guys feeling now that after you've had a bit of a rough start to the season and we're getting towards the tail end of it? After that dub, how are you guys feeling about the team's prospects?
Yeah, definitely feeling better. If only Donga's PC didn't, die. That might be a bit more helpful if he gets that back. But definitely going towards this final matchup and hopefully finals, we're definitely keen. We've got some stuff up our sleeve that we can bring out, and yeah, hopefully we can make it to the finals for the first time ActionX ever makes it.
Alrighty, well, I'm keeping an eye on that, and I'll let you guys celebrate that win, and we'll keep an eye on you guys in the future. Thanks for having a chat with us, CJ.
Thanks, guys.
See what?
There you go. He's penned himself in for the finals as much as he's penned a bunch of the boys in that last game.
Oh, Bilsy learning what a tanks. Bilsy's learning what a tanks terminology. He's getting there. Yeah, look, I think it's super impressive from ActionX. Obviously, this team, as has been reiterated a couple of times, has never made finals, and I'm pretty sure they've never made playoffs either. So this will be the first time that this core has been able to do that. I know it's completely different to the first ActionX that we got in season 1, but obviously it's been one of those teams that has had to chop and change a lot. Like, I think it's quite easy if you come in the first season, someone like Sentinels, right, and you just win and you don't really have to make too many changes. You keep that same strong core and you pretty much follow through from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, and you continue to add on and improve to that core, versus having to build a new team from the ground up season after season after season. And not only that, but they also win tonight's game without Dongalord. Obviously, that's a really important point that we didn't really touch on too much over the course of the game. But he's kind of their star player, right? He's their 5-star pick, and he tends to play those really important roles, like the Bat Chat, the 50B. Wasn't there tonight, but they still get the job done. So really, really good stuff from ActionX, and hope to see them do well in the finals.
100%. Well, that's our first series out of the way, but we do have 2 more to be getting into in the rest of the night. So before we get to series 2, we're going to go to a short break. We'll see you guys again soon.
I don't know about this call from ActionX. They're going to try to go up over the top, and they are going to get farmed for doing that. Gloucester is just eating shell after shell.
Look, for a brief moment, I was about to say this could still be very much workable for both camps. Maybe Matildas will end up throwing this one, but Gloucester should die in a moment here. Yeah. Ooh.
Can't be affording to lose this duel against Trax. He's eaten a shot there from CJ as well.
Trax needs to find a finisher here on Whippet. And then that might be actually the play. He does, so that is a good sign.
CJ's on the run. Kiwi needs to ensure he connects this next shot.
Trax just fired his second shot as well, so that is going to be on a long reload. And CJ actually lands his shot. Oh my god.
Dynamite and Saxon have gotten a very long way without being seen, and this is just going to be a huge chunk of damage into the side of Iron Guard. I mean, is the ops mod broken, or are Kiwi Dynamite and Saxon just unspotted at this point? That is ridiculous. Straight into the side of Saxon. That, of course, does do a fairly hefty chunk, but leaves ActionX with now a 3-on-4. Well, straight over the top here from ActionX onto Critical. He's going to be isolated pretty quick and dealt with by the looks of things in just a moment. You are seeing some shots come in from Whippet. Tracks down now to 432. Which will be a one-shot for the M454, and I dare say that's where Kiwi Dynamite's going to be looking. Saxon is in a bit of trouble, you're right. Going to get one more shot off, though. No, is the answer. Trax has just deleted him, and this is going to take some salvaging. After 1v1 by Iron Guard, taken out of this fight pretty much. CJ eventually does fall to Critical, but dare say he's not going to last too much longer. Might get one more shot into Val before he goes down, but end of the day, very successful for Action X. Just going to get one more shot in there onto Val, but peaks again. Val, whoa, he bounced. Iron Guard should finish it off right here. Never mind, the HE shot hasn't gone through. Hopefully see a bit of a rotate in here from Action X. They've got all the info that they need. Now it's down to Iron Guard to just uphold his end of the bargain. A 482 roll is not exactly what he'd be wanting there in the M454. Track's about to come off the reload, but where's all the other tanks from Action X? They need to be coming across now. That bad chat, the Super Conks especially, need to get in this fight, and they have. I think this one should be going the way of Action X, though. Kiwi Dynamite will go down to the next shot from Val, if not Trax. And of course, Dongalord's going to win that 1v1 against the Super Conqueror every day of the week. He was half HP. And Dongalord is just not going to fumble the bag like that. It is now just down to Whippet, who's got a couple of good shots in there with the VZ55, but it is unfortunately all done and dusted. Twit is definitely a dead man. The question is going to be, though, whether or not Dark Knight can survive. And Twit, you get one more shot off here. Mendicant will slide it through. It ends up being a 2-for-1. That might not be the end of the discussion just yet, because JS is going to slide one through onto Atherin, and now we're back to the 3-on-3. Dastardly, definitely a dead man here, and does he even have the gun depression to get the shots in onto AVP? Not going to matter.
All things considered, this is an amazing start for Comets.
It is indeed very, very good stuff. This is not a crossfire that I want to be driving into if I'm Comets. Bales, yeah, he's happy to take the 1v1 now, and Dark Knight's just driving around. And they didn't realize that they were walking into a crossfire. And by the time they'd committed, it was too late to get that information, because that was when he started shooting at them. And
remembering the game against Sentinel here, Jordan, the first round that went really, really well. Comets managed to catch their opponents off guard. Second round, and from there on out, felt like it was kind of just all falling through.
Not the player they want. They want to get the reset onto Stife. They've managed to do that now, but they have caught Bales. Bales is really in trouble, and it's now a case of Bales needs to survive as long as, or do as much damage as AVP. But both of those players are more or less left for dead.
Technically a two-man squad, so either Stife will go, or Mendicant, or matter of fact, why not both? Funnily enough, Madhouse still falls amidst all of this absolute chaos. So back and forth sort of trades, a game of tennis, but as a matter of fact, it's Panthers that actually come out victorious so far, all things considered, but the 50B is just cleaning house.
This is really bad news for Panthers. They've got to drive forward. Dastardly cannot be sitting here. He is gone. Got to hope this is a low roll from Dark Knight, which it does end up being. And so Dastardly can survive a couple of shells, which will give Twit a little bit more room to move. There is an exchange of damage back on in, but I just don't see how you win this one as Twit. Where's Bad gonna go? Like, literally, where is he gonna go? He's just gonna get fast. And in the meanwhile, Panthers, I mean, they've just been completely...
Let's go.
Yeah, just don't push crit.
Oh my god, no. No, I
Back
get...
out, back out.
We need to be up here.
I'm gonna train you guys.
Go back. Go in front of me. Go in front of me. On the way.
What's happening, guys?
Oh, they just drove out. It's fine.
They're all on us.
Focus fire.
We need to kill Cindy.
Yes.
I'll come behind them. I'm dead.
Nice.
Slow a little bit.
Wait.
I'm behind them. I'm behind them with five.
Nice, boys. Well done.
Nice.
Very well played.
Well in.
Nice shooting there, Zula. Nice shooting. How do you miss the whole time?
I didn't miss.
I need to push off the skunk.
One shot me.
otherwise it's a
I'm one
skunk
shot. I
farm.
cannot be.
The skunk fell.
One
Why
more
did
push
he
before the bat gets here. One more push. Just push him.
I'm under the water.
Hello, I am under the water.
Ice
Well, shampoo. Feeding on the fantasy.
Oh no, that's bad, but
Wait. Aww.
I wanted girl you.
If I wanted to humpies.
I wanted fantasy. Unlucky. Track him, right.
Just don't peek and let him kill me.
I'm gonna get crossfire.
I farmed the game. I said the skunk.
Oh, I put him on fire as well.
I killed
The
the skunk.
same
I killed
guy.
the skunk.
I need help.
Oh, I just shot you.
Nice
Whoops.
shot.
Thank you.
Ah! He's trying to shoot me! He's trying to shoot me! Help me! They can all hit me. I gotta get down. I gotta get down.
Get down.
I
Get
need
down.
help.
I can farm the CS as well. I can maybe kill the CS.
Yeah, we need it. Everyone needs to get safe.
I missed.
Vizzy -1.
Cindy, get safe.
I got the kill.
Yes.
I'm trying to go south now. Rondi, move. I mean, not backwards, bro. I'm going now.
There's a skunk. We need to pick. Run pick. Go for the bat. Bat first. Kill the bat.
Kill the bat.
Can
Anyone get one more? Can anyone get one more?
Yeah, me.
That's what I want to see.
No CJ, you liking these strats I made up just on them fly, dude?
You should do all our strats on the fly, dude.
I've got one more shot for him.
Yeah,
I'm covering you, JC. I'm covering you.
Waluigi.
Yeah, they can't do.
Waluigi.
I still fucking can't pen.
I'm coming in.
Killer show.
We won the game.
He's poking you guys.
I don't know where this CS went.
He's still there. He's here. He's here. Get out of the way.
I'm serious.
Amarak.
Simpy.
Go inside. You go inside me. You go inside.
He's running.
That was
Us.
Nice.
Okay.
Play cap. Play for cap.
He's not mid then.
He's behind us.
Behind. Push him. He's missed. He's missed.
Let's
Nice.
go. Let's
Nice.
go.
Not really sure what we're doing here. We may as well just throw the players' comms on the mainstream and get rid of these terrible commentators, if you ask me, because that was quality entertainment there, Jordan. What was your favorite moment from the comms video?
I like the bit where they said duck.
Yeah,
they said that a lot actually.
They did. There was some cow noises as well. Are you a fan of beef, Cthulhu?
Look, always a fan of beef. Always a fan of some quality roasts as well. Beef roasts have been good. You know, the Scorpions mantra as they presented it last week as well. Almost been kind of the single-handedly been returning their mental game back into their best shape, arguably. So yeah, look, I'm all for it.
I mean, sometimes you do, to retain the mental, you do need to get a bit silly in comms. Obviously not tanks, but on my old esports teams in shooting games, sometimes we would pretend we were cavemen to try and save the mental. We say, me throw smoke for you. I got you. And it was pretty good. Either way, though, all comms videos and, saving the mental strategies aside, we do have a second series to get into. So let's dig a little bit more into this match between the Sentinels and the Comets here, Jordan, where, it's an interesting one for sure, because you've kind of outlined the Sentinels as the favorites for the whole season, maybe win the LAN and all that kind of stuff. But Comets have kind of been on the up and up, to be honest.
Yeah, look, it's been a pretty good sort of season from Comets, I would say. Obviously, for the Sentinels, I don't think that they need much of an introduction. They are probably one of the best teams in the... Well, not probably one of the best teams, definitely one of the best teams, probably the best team. Obviously, Scorpions is outperforming them so far in this regular season, but we'll still see how that does play out when it comes into playoffs. What I actually want to highlight out of this series is now the fact that ActionX have gotten to 14 points. Panthers are on 10. Can't play again until obviously next week. So Panthers can go up to 13 best case scenario. If Comets wins this series, Panthers cannot make it into the top 4, which would mean they would have gotten knocked out of playoffs. Oh, I should say, if they win it cleanly, 3-1 or better. If they go through to the tiebreaker and win, they'd go up to 13. Maybe there's still a world where tiebreakers would ensue and Panthers potentially could still make it. But that's definitely something that Comets will be aware of. They'll be thinking, if we can win this series cleanly now, we can pretty much book ourselves a ticket into the playoffs. So that's what's on offer. Obviously, it affects the Panthers, and they're going to be watching quite keenly.
But how likely is that, Cthulhu? Let's be honest. Do you have a lot of faith in the boys on the Comets? They've been putting some good series together, but taking out the Sentinels, is that a bit of a bridge too far?
Look, I'll be honest. Yes, I did predict it towards the favor of Sentinels, but Comets, in the dynamic that they have been heading towards with the progression that they've had so far, if they catch a dub over Sense tonight, honestly, this will be a really, really good turnout. Yes, it's still a battle of David and Goliath as it stands right now for them. But with their progression, absolutely, by all means, they have all the toolkits to take it against Sentinels. I reckon they have the sort of the ability to. Well, there's way less pressure on them right now because you look at this matchup. Majority of the people will be keeping their eyes out on Sentinels, which will present a little bit of the extra pressure on them. Whereas for Comets, look, at this point, we already even said it previously. They already managed to get themselves out of the bottom of the leaderboard. They managed to show us some really good game. At this point, well, any future dubs, including tonight, is a quality bonus. And with them having the lineup that they have right now, I'm actually inclined to say that there is a fairly realistic chance for that to happen.
What do you think about the lineup in the server tonight for the Comets, Jordan?
Yeah, looks good. I mean, I'm a fan of pretty much whatever roster Comets is bringing. To be honest, I think they do tend to put together a pretty good team. However you sort of look at it, because the substitutions or the sort of ancillary players, I suppose, that they've got are also still quite substantially good players as well. If we look at the roster, I mean, obviously you've got Safi getting 24% of games and AVP getting 48. So you kind of got that core of the roster coming through from the B League team. And then the two additions of the two ANZPL players, the previous ANZPL players, kind of in there to help out. But yeah, sort of whichever roster you do end up getting, whatever the 5 is, either you're sort of taking out a couple of those core players and you're putting in a couple of really experienced players in AVP and Safi, or you're keeping that core 5 together, and that obviously is still quite a positive sign. So overall, I sort of like what we get from Comets kind of regardless, and they play a really good game. So I'm kind of keen to see how they go tonight against Sentinels. It'll be a big test for them.
There we go. We're going to highlight Cindy this time around. Saw him a little bit in the comms videos. He does not have a hair out of place there, Cthulhu.
Sorry, say that again?
He doesn't have a hair out of place there. That is perfectly maintained hair.
That is a really well maintained.
I feel like I could brush my hair with his hair.
I mean, look, I would imagine if you do make it over to the land, by all means, do give it a crack. I mean, you look at Powers. Yes, it's slightly messier compared to Cindy's, but it's still a pretty well maintained hairline, all things considered. Same could be said really for his accuracy. 75% is not too bad at all. And I mean, with the way how he was able to lead Comets for all intents and purposes, even without him. I mean, you look at the last week's matchup where he actually didn't even partake in the matchup. Comets did pretty well, all things considered. So yeah, look. By all means, Comets. I think this is their big breakthrough chance here, and with the dynamic that they have been heading throughout the second half of the season, by all means, go for it now. I'm actually quite curious about these map picks, and I'm.
Just before, I have to say, PP Power definitely carrying my fantasy theme, and our producer, confused about the relevance of hair to esports team, clearly has not understood the good hair plus fat guy needs to have one of each on every team. Has not heard that little rule before, so maybe I'll have to educate him over the break as we head into Sentinel's pick of Himmelsdorf here.
Yeah. Elfish. Thoughts on Himmelsdorf for Sentinels?
Himmelsdorf good.
Himmelsdorf good. Okay, so
yes,
thank you.
Himmelsdorf good.
Professional analysis here. Power on 50B actually could do quite a lot of good early damage, I reckon, if there was any presence on the middle, but that's a bit neglected.
I mean, this is kind of scary, I think, for Comets, because of the fact that they brought the double 50B. If they don't get a good initial fight, they are going to be cooked. I mean, you think about the DPM that's going to be coming out, the double E100, the double Super Conqueror for Sentinels. If those 50Bs are caught unawares or don't blow a tank up, they are going to be just decimated. And I like this setup for Sentinels. I think they're a very, very good Himmelsdorf team. So they've gone for a little bit more of like what's called, I would say, more of a consistent lineup. Whereas I think the 50B lineup is a little bit more explosive. It can be a little bit more exciting. But in terms of its consistency, I'm not sure that you get that out of the double 50B setup that you maybe would from the super heavy lineup that Sentinels have got here. So, yeah, I think they're looking good on the defense so far. Obviously, a bit of bleed out onto Dell. Not a huge deal, not a huge concern. They've got a huge HP advantage to play with. So, Comets are going to have a real think about how they want to use these 50Bs because they are going to need to use them perfectly.
Yeah, basically the 50Bs, 2 of those clips should be able to equalize the HP pretty well, but that basically means that, well, not a single bit of damage will be sunken into the Comets. So for all intents and purposes, I mean, that shot of damage onto Dell was just sort of a detergent from him to flat out, fully send it with the 2E100. So for what it's worth, this is, I don't hate it yet, this whole setup, but the moment they decide to dedicate towards the 2-line push, I think whoever's the S-Conk on inside the train depot will be able to actually farm up rather nicely, just given the debris that you can hide the whole hull behind, and you can basically just be rent-free. Oh, Rainbow's gonna have an absolute festival of damage here.
Yep, you'd love to be in this spot in a Super Conqueror, that's for sure. So far, just the one spot onto PP Power. Hasn't got much info beyond that, but I think Sentinels are going to be happy with that, to be honest. Not seeing too much going on from Comets. They know that the timer is bleeding down a little bit. Return fire. Just a bounce off of Rainbow, so he'll be fine. Already 11k blocked. Love to see that.
Pretty good.
I mean, look, like I said, I think this is going to be a really difficult one to dig through for Comets because there's just so much HP on all of those tanks. There's no, like, obvious target necessarily for the 50Bs. I suppose you're probably wanting to take down one of the Super Conquerors, ideally, if you can. But getting in a position with these double 50Bs to be able to effectively blow up a tank in this game, especially against a team like Sentinels, who are probably the best Himmelsdorf team in the league, I just don't know how easy that's going to be for Comets. So, like I said, it's going to have to be perfect from them.
Here's a theory I reckon, that could sort of have a decent weight to it. Say, grab a 50B, or better yet, 2 of them, send them through the castle, and then try to get them over through the A line. So completely ignore the initial turn to the left. Try to get the initial sort of the bleed damage from behind, whilst the 2 M454s plus the IS4 push ahead. So they're the distraction. The 50Bs are there for the damage, but instead it's actually a full-on middle push, which isn't a bad one per se, but now that reveals the position, that reveals the plan of one of the 50Bs, and the M454 is still very much out far and away from the brawl. So this is where the clip damage versus the consistent cyclical damage will actually come into the play here.
Yeah, exactly. And the Comets have done a really good job of being able to take down Dell in that IS4. But what worries me is they are now in a crossfire between 2 E100s and 2 Super Conks. And obviously, the 50Bs, they've already fired, they've already dumped their clips, and this is the problem. Sentinels, with that consistent DPS, are in the long term going to come out ahead. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Dark Knight and PP Power on the reload, ineffective. They're not even tanks at the moment. They're just punching bags, and the Sentinels are going to roll in and pick up a couple of trades for themselves. Dark Knight and PP Power do come off the reload and start to try to salvage things, but there's just so much HP for the Sentinels still. They're above 6k HP with 3 minutes left on the clock. Comets are done. Atherin, he's losing his 1v1 against Rainbow, and of course PP Power, he's in a 1v3. So realistically, what is that man going to do but die?
Yeah, basically at this point, this is sort of the whole round is a done deal. Can't really do much, can't really hit much. And sort of from here on out, yeah, first round has been wrapped up pretty well. Yeah, Sentinels played their cards extremely well. And sort of the decision to not really lean too hard into the autoloaders ultimately has been sort of so far the go, especially on those close quarters maps.
There you go. 1-0, getting the dub there for Sentinels on their map pick. I feel like every time I've seen these guys playing Himmelsdorf, they are just coming on in there and absolutely steamrolling the opposition, going in together, very quick, very decisive, even though the start of that game was a bit more of a slow burn though, Jordan.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, and that's kind of what you're going to get out of a game on Himmelsdorf. Like, it's never going to be like just a massive all done in 30 seconds kind of a fight in most cases. It tends to lend itself towards heavier tanks, and so obviously the fights are going to sort of draw out a little bit longer. And then especially with the lineup that Sentinels brought, it's like you're bringing pretty much the super heaviest of super heavy lineup that you realistically are going to bring at this point in the meta. Like, yeah, okay, let's say for the sake of argument, you can bring in a mouse or two, but like no one's really playing that tank. So you get 2 E100s, you get 2 super conks, you've got an IS4. You're not really going much more heavy than that, and so it's really going to take a while to chunk through all of that HP. And that was the problem. Like when you bring a double 50B into a composition like that, like I was saying, there's no tank that you can really just blow up and take out of the game. Yeah, arguably you can, because they did that to Dell, but you've basically used 2 full clips from the 50Bs to get through that, which is a combined total of 4k damage left on the field. And then you're a sitting duck for 30, 45 seconds, and Sentinels is not going to be the kind of team to let you get away with that. So Dell goes down without doing too much damage. You know, he gets a couple of shots out, he even blocked 1.1k. So he's kind of done his job in a sense there, and then it's on the actually superior DPM tanks, with the Super Conks in particular, to just sort of run away with things. And Return and Rainbow obviously have really capitalized on that.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty well-rounded performance, and damn, a lot of these boys heading a lot of the shots there. Cthulhu doing pretty well for themselves. Dark Knight's had a good game for himself there as well, even though Comets didn't take the dub there.
Yeah, look, for all intents and purposes, at least in terms of the damage department / fantasy points, yeah, Dark Knight definitely did pretty well for himself. The same can't really be said for the rest of the team, which is rather the more unfortunate sort of turnout. But I mean, yeah, look, for Sentinels, it is borderline expected, their performance. I mean, Rainbow putting out the numbers, Returned once again being the consistent #1 performer. Wymo as well, who right after the matchup has ended, decided to, you know, call in Chief, tell him this is it. So yeah, look, this is looking pretty solid so far for Sentinels.
Alrighty, well, looking at the comments then, Jordan, 0-1. I mean, they're not. You know, I haven't been following the league as closely. It's been a couple of weeks for me, but it's especially a team like the Comets coming up from the second tier league. I don't think this is really a matchup you're necessarily expecting them to win, but with how well their trajectory has gone since they started playing here in the Premier League, you almost kind of want them to take the dub. So do you think that there's a chance they can kind of even this up 1-1 and maybe even try to make a bit more of a closer series of this than that first round?
Look, I don't think I would be expecting them to equalize at 1-1 here on Himmelsdorf. If they're going to equalize it, I'd say maybe Siegfried Line. Obviously not a map that Sentinels play a huge amount of. I think that's where the opportunity kind of is, more so than on Sentinels map choice. I'd probably back Sentinels to 2-0 like every team in the league on Himmelsdorf most of the time. So yeah, it's not really a slight against Comets that I say that. But yeah, very, very hard, I think, to come back from a game against the Sentinels down 0-1 at Himmelsdorf, because theoretically they should just beat you on the second half as well. Siegfried Line, yeah, maybe offers a little bit of a potential there for Comets, but like you said, this is not a matchup that we expect them to win. This is not a matchup that they should win. If they make it close, if they get it to a tiebreaker, then I'm going to be really impressed. If they can even take a round off Sentinels, I think that's probably a result to be happy with, to be honest.
We'll try and scrape through a couple more points together as we head towards the end of the season. Let's swap over the sides and see what we're going to get here on Himmelsdorf between these two teams.
I'm actually excited about this matchup, despite the fact that, yeah, look, we are sort of expecting Comets to not particularly get a whole lot of success. It's something about just, you know, sometimes they just whip out the most obnoxiously odd strats. Or some of the picks, you know, for example, the version 4 to come through. It's not about tank per se. It's just because there's no turret, you can't really engage in, you know, very thorough brawls. But it's at least, you know, it's the effort that counts, at least in my head.
Good little scouting run there from Returned. Doesn't spot anything on the hill. It's an interesting setup for Comets, obviously, with the 268v4 coming through. They're quite prepared for a brawl, and I almost feel like this is a bit of a counter read from Comets. If you watch the last couple of times Himmelsdorf was played by Sentinels on the attack, they have sent all of their tanks up the hill and driven down the B line as a big group of 5. And that, I think, is what Comets are expecting. They've got 2 tanks on the A line, which is pretty much an irrelevant position in any other world than if Sentinels were to push down the B line. So I think they've kind of tried to go for a little bit of a counter read here and see if Sentinels are going to more or less play the exact same strategy. Doesn't look like that's going to happen, though, because Sentinels are going to work their way down Banana. But, yeah, I mean, for the 268v4 and whatever tank it is behind it, the 50B.
The 50B, yeah.
They're not like, sort of providing any information. They're not really holding a particularly strong position right now. This only works if Sentinels drives into this setup. And, I mean, you've got a couple of tanks on the hill here, and you've also got the 3 working their way up Banana. But if they turn left instead of going straight and take that fight to the E100 on the C5 position, then that's going to be a really big problem for the Comets, because that's a tank that is now isolated, and that's exactly what Sentinels are doing. So they've really mind game Comets a little bit here, and Stife is in a lot of trouble now.
Yeah, this sort of that trio is definitely going to be throwing quite a bit of a spanner in the works there of Comets, because Stife can only hold off this trio push for just about as long. So yeah, Dark Knight tries to rendezvous with him to at least get some damage. Not going to particularly work out, and unfortunately, I actually believe only one of the whole clip, one shot actually went in there, so that is rather tragic here. Stife will still be able to stick around for, well, more seconds, but that is basically it. Already one of the tanks down, and well, at least Cindy's on an ammo rack hit. So,
yeah.
Well, that.
You've also got to consider the fact right now that this is actually a 5-on-3 because the 50B is still reloading. Rainbow is going to get in there behind Mendicant. We're back to a 4-on-4, and obviously Dark Knight now coming off the reload is going to really look to be effective with this clip. I think this next clip really decides how the rest of this fight is going to go. He's decided to dump it into Rainbow, which, look, I can't blame him. It was the obvious choice, but he's really got to be getting it onto the key tanks, and Dell was one of those. So they've been able to take Dell down. It's now numbers advantage for a brief moment for the Comets. Dark Knight again on the reload. Mendicant is going to be taken down in that meanwhile, and Atherin will not likely win his 1v1 against Return. So unfortunately, just not quite enough done by the Comets. It was a good shout, a good attempt. They've really made it close here, and I think the 50B of Dark Knight has been effective in what it needed to do. But the fact that Sentinels didn't walk into the trap, they found the isolated tank of their own, and they were able to get an advantage, has more or less made this an unwinnable round here from the Comets. I don't think Comets played it too badly, considering their setup. But end of the day, Sentinels is just a little bit too good. And, you know, but for 2,000 HP, Comets could have won that round, and unfortunately they don't. Sentinels 2-0.
Well, there you go. The Chunky boys paying off again there, Cthulhu. What do you think that is from, you know, Sentinels kind of taking it slow at the start and feeling out the other team's setup? Is that like a bit of preparation, or are they just kind of that good at feeling things out and kind of reading the game as they go on the fly?
Well, it's a bit of column A, bit of column B, really, because when you have a caller like Rainbow, he would be able to make those sort of calls, at least as far as I understand how things really go there, for sense. He is able to get a pretty decent read off the back of sort of the initial sort of setups or where the tanks are absent. Plus, sort of in general, the way how Sentinels played it all out, it felt like it was just them more so kind of just cleaning up their sort of standard drills, sort of plays by the book, where it's, in terms of the picks, yeah, look, the E100s, the S-Kongs, the IS4s, it all sort of feels like a very sort of almost standardized set of picks, especially for a close quarters map like Himmelsdorf. So here, this has just been a clinical sort of play by Sentinels, where they just needed, they cleaned up their act. They didn't really do anything too fancy, just sort of opened up the book on chapter 1. That's how you approach Himmelsdorf. Literally copy that from the book. Weimar gets a 5k damage, and yeah, the rest is history.
Yes, sometimes the fundamentals are there for a reason, and we go through in towards the statistics here. Jordan, anything kind of jumping out at you?
Yeah, really impressive from Dark Knight. I saw he had 4.8k damage, and I wondered, you know, was that just big high rolls, or did he get 12 shots down, which would be sort of the more average rolls? And he did actually end up getting the 12 shots out, penned them all. Really impressive stuff from him in the 50B. He played his role well, but Stife in particular was the one that was kind of in a position to go down early, and unfortunately for him, he doesn't really get the opportunity to get much damage out. He's only able to fire 3 shots, and like, it's not really a slight on him. Like, it's not his fault necessarily. Like, he is playing that position for a reason, and he can't do much more from the position that he was in. But it's just, yeah, like I said, really unfortunate for Comets that they don't have anyone in the immediate vicinity to help that E100 out. So even though the trades do go relatively well for them, the fact that there's probably, what, like 3 or 4 free shots here into Stife in that E100 just means that Sentinels are able to punch through him, take that gun out of the game, and then slowly but surely win that war of attrition over the rest of the game. Because if you've got 5 guns firing, they've got 4, or even in some cases 3 when the 50B is reloading, ultimately you're putting out more damage, and, you know, inevitably the Comets just can't quite keep up with that. And as we said right at the end of that round, it was really like a 2,000 HP deficit. So as far as the trades were concerned, Comets kind of went 1 for 1. It was just that free damage at the start that was kind of the difference maker. That if Comets would have, you know, maybe had someone with Stife and they were able to sort of work together, juggle a bit of HP, something like that, keep him in for like maybe 2 more shots. If he can get 2 more shots out, that could potentially make a massive difference for Comets. It was a very close round, but in the end, Sentinels just proved to be that 10% better, and that's enough to get the win.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like they kind of had the read on the setup a little bit there, whereas maybe if they had gone, you know, into Comets who were pretty heavily committed up the top there, could have been a little bit of a different story, Cthulhu.
Yeah, look, for Comets, I think the way how they set themselves up was a bit of a coin toss, really, because they were preparing for that very thorough sort of push through the castle, through that sort of the 0 line, where they could have actually met with some pretty hefty force. And I mean, version 4 up front is quite a difficult target to really pen, especially on the go. So, look, it was a decent idea, but yeah, unfortunately, Himmelsdorf didn't particularly work out. Siegfried line, though, this is where things would get funky. This is where I think the team that is able to get a firmer control over the field will be the one to actually be able to claim a really good chunk of the ground.
Well, eyes on Comets there. See if they can peg back any points here against some of the best in the league.
Look, I'm not going to be expecting them to win this one. I'm not expecting them to, you know, bring it back to a tiebreaker. But if it's going to happen anywhere, it has to happen, obviously, on Siegfried Line now that they've lost that 2-0. But also because of the fact that Comets have chosen this map. So let's see what they've got for us. It's going to be a fast play down the 0 line, which is already spotted by Returned. He's got a bit of free damage in there, and he's starting to back his way up. I'm not sure I'm a huge fan of this for Comets because they're going to try and get that damage back down onto Returned, but by doing so, they should realistically be walking into a bit of a crossfire. Rainbow is there to help on out, and when you're going to go up against a double Super Conqueror, it doesn't really matter what tanks you're in, you are probably going to lose that DPM fight. Dell on the backside as well, in the bat chat, he can fire a couple of cross shots over, and Comets, I think they've already lost this round, to be honest, Cthulhu.
Look, I wouldn't call it just full on yet. Yes, this is a rather drastic sort of change in the HP pool as well. But look, for all intents and purposes, I'm happy that we got to see a much more experimental play, sort of to break the mold a little bit here, because usually all we see is one flag push, hunker down, and pray to RNGesus that the shots don't pan. Whereas here, this was a very clearly sort of designated play where
How's,
you know,
Rainbow's still full HP, by the way?
Oh, look, Rainbow is just built differently.
Yeah. Well, Return's going to bounce a shot there as well. Both actually Stife and Return bouncing off one another. But end of the day, I think the big issue here for Comets was that Return was just spotting that line. Comets really, with that kind of a strategy, with that kind of a send, are hoping, banking on the fact that they're going to get a little bit deeper than what they did without being spotted. But the fact that the info comes through so early for Returned makes for an easy rotate from the Sentinels, and, well, they're going to win the series there, 3-0. Bit of an anti-climax, really, in the end, because that was a super one-sided round. Very much the expectation, though, for them to get the win there, and they'll put themselves up to 19 points on the scoreboard, waiting for Scorpions to reply to see whether or not, obviously, they can hold on to first place or not. And for Panthers, that's actually great news, because that keeps Comets on 11 points. There's no way that they're going above 11 points, which means Panthers can still fight for survival in playoffs next week.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit of a done deal there when I saw, I think it was Dark Knight just get deleted in the first, 10 seconds after having, like, the top stats in one of the previous maps. So that was a little bit of a sad day for Comets, but, even particularly in this kind of, like, league format, even in other esports, I always say whenever you've got an underdog team, you always want to see them, push one of the better teams in the league, and you can kind of feel out what their form's like and how they're performing and stuff. But particularly, even in a league format like this one, it's a little bit even more brutal for someone like Comets to kind of get 0-3 there, because they don't even get any, points, don't even scrape any kind of points together that they could possibly get towards the very end of the season here, and every point counts when we're getting in the nitty gritty of that 3 to 5 position.
Yeah, look, I've definitely got a feel for comments the way how things really turned out for them. But look, all things considered, they still had a pretty stellar turnout this season. Yes, they so far can't really qualify for the playoffs, but for all intents and purposes, they managed to keep themselves well and truly away from the bottom of the leaderboard, which already counts as quite a big sort of turnout. I mean, the fact that they managed to avoid it all completely and still keep themselves in the sort of in the middle pack, that's already great. And I mean, outside of Scorpions and Sentinels, I will stand on the hill and say that Comets can very much take it to a close game against any other team.
Yeah,
I mean, I think they can take it to a
their
close
place
game
in the league, right?
They can take it to a close game against Sentinels. We kind of saw that even on Himmelsdorf, right? Okay, maybe it wasn't super close in the second round of Himmelsdorf, but it was a good attempt. I thought it was a good fight from Comets. It's not as if they can't go toe-to-toe with the individuals. It's just, I think that the setups and the decision-making and the timing really are so much better for the Sentinels.
Yeah, I mean, even I'm seeing parallels between Tanks and some of the other games that I look at where it's like, you know, they were trying to go for something very specific, and it's not even, you know, a bad approach for when you're the underdog team and maybe you don't have as good kind of calling potential, you don't have as good kind of decision making. You want to just kind of throw something in there, and if the other team makes a mistake, then even if you're the not favored team, you can get yourself a cheeky win.
Yep, pretty much. I mean, I kind of, like you said, Cthulhu, I kind of like that we got this from Comets. I mean, Sentinels is maybe not the best team to try it against because I think for most, in most instances, Sentinels are going to have a pretty good read on like what's going on. They're going to have a good sort of defensive setup. They're not really going to have too many holes, or if they do, they're going to be pretty aware of it. So if you're going to use it against any team, probably Sentinels is not going to be the one to fall for something a bit quicker like that. But you know, ultimately, I think you got to do what you got to do when you're the underdog in a matchup like this. So I'll give some credit to Comets for sort of trying to throw a bit of a curveball in there. Obviously, Siegfried Line is the newest map in the competitive pool, and we haven't really seen too much of it so far this season. So maybe you try and pull it out. Maybe you try and get a cheeky win off of Sentinels. Hasn't happened this time, but hey, maybe they can salvage something here in the fourth round.
Yeah, see if they can get themselves a cheeky 3-1 and try to save some face and maybe show us that good form that we've seen them that's earned themselves a middle spot in the league here.
Oh man, this has been so far quite a roller coaster of a play day, I have to say. From, you know, the AX reverse sweep to rather unconventional strategies of Comets attempting to throw off Sentinels in one shape or the other, whereas Sentinels just look like that sort of absolute staunch demon that you throw pebbles at them, it's just literally nothing really phases them in any shape or form. So although this feels like a much more sort of by the book play, where again one flag contention, but this time it's a full-on overpush. It's a play for numbers.
It's a big send actually here from Sentinels right now, and they have found Atherin, and they are not letting Atherin get out of here for free at all. Return and Wymo are just going to cyberbully him. Cindy is getting bullied a little bit as well. Trying to get set on fire as well. Damaged fuel tank, but that's not going to matter because he is out of the picture pretty quick smart. This will end up being a 1-for-1 trade. 513 roll is just not quite enough to finish off Atherin, and so he gets out alive for now. Sentinels are still trading reasonably effectively, though, despite the fact that they're down a tank. So Comets are going to want to make sure that they can try to push this advantage that they've got. And they're bringing PP Power across to try and do so, but they do need to be careful. Obviously, Dell in that bat chat, he'll try to come off that reload and come into this fight. I like this push, though, from Comets. I think they can win from here, Cthulhu.
Look, yeah, we could definitely see quite a possibility for Comets to actually win, even just to get themselves one round in their bag. And yeah, look, they actually managed to turn this around pretty well, all things considered. When you're looking at the positionings, you're looking at the fact that it was so far quite a successful set of trades. And yeah, look, Comets actually doing their rotations pretty cleanly, all things considered.
Yeah, and it can go down. It is back to the 2-on-2, which realistically is now a 2-on-1 for Wymo. This is, though, not unwinnable for Wymo. Very difficult to win, of course, assuming Comets are going to play it effectively. But he does have a corpse to play hull down behind. That shot in from Stife is just going to go a little bit wayward. Really good ram, though. And you can see what Wymo's trying to do here. He's trying to get on top of Dark Knight. He's going to try and get that shot through onto him. Damaged ammo rack now pretty much means this one is unwinnable. Even if he pens that shot, even if he high rolls and kills Dark Knight, Wymo doesn't win this anymore because he's on a massive reload. So, done and dusted. Well done to Comets for securing at least the final round of the game. But end of the day, it was all Sentinels.
Yeah, at least you see a couple of signs of life out of the Comets. You see some of those, good plays that they were making in the games that they were losing come to fruition a little bit more. They were quite decisive in trying to push that good position, and they get themselves a dub on the board there, Cthulhu. So you got to be happy with that.
Oh yeah, it's still sort of, a bit of a bittersweet sort of win there at the end of the matchup. But all things considered, yeah, look, at least it wasn't a 4-0. At least they managed to get some form of revenge to just, for the feels good sort of moment, I guess. But look, results has been relatively expected. Let's just say that Sentinels would be the ones to come out with a dub. That it would be, up to Comets to try to do anything. Yes, they tried something spicy, and I mean, it was a decent idea, but as we sort of highlighted multiple times, it ended up being sort of experience over the innovation, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, look, they try to throw in that secret line there, pick there, Jordan, and they get themselves the 1-1 on that. I think that's kind of what you wanted to see there. I guess to hang in the series, it's a bit of a rough one when you got to go into Himmelsdorf first up, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, no one going into Sentinels is going to feel comfortable about going on to Himmelsdorf, so kind of is what it is. I think Comets kind of have upheld their end of the bargain. For the real of it, you do want to be getting 2-0s on your own map choice, but knowing that you're going into such a mismatched game, looking for a 1-1 on your map and sort of just trying to do your best on your opponent's map choice is probably not a bad sort of goal to be hitting there for Comets. I'm sure they would have loved to have gotten a point or, even multiple points there to kind of secure their place in the playoffs, but they have to think about this in the grand scheme of things and say that was a very difficult game for us to win. Most of the time, we're not going to win that. Let's figure it out for next week, because next week's going to be the big game. Action X, they did look susceptible today against the Panthers, and that's the team that Comets are going to be going up against. So their own destiny is in their own hands.
I think across this series as well, like win or lose, you've seen kind of different players playing well for Comets. Cthulhu, you've seen I think there was a big game in there from Atherin, and then you had a good game from Dark Knight and Mendicant and Stiefel were pretty good there, and PP Power's carrying my fantasy team, so seems like a pretty well-rounded roster, honestly, for these blokes.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, Comets is still a very, very talented roster, all things considered. It's a team that has a great amount of potential, and I think, say, if the roster stays relatively similar going into the further seasons, I genuinely think that they 110% would be able to contest for the playoff spot. The moment they just put in a little bit more effort, they stick together, they just don't let too many change-ups really happen to the roster, because I reckon sort of chemistry 110% sort of goes over the refreshed roster, changed roster, and all of that. So similar to what Scorpions basically have rolling, if Comets can do a similar thing and maybe introduce 1 or 2 changes, perfect. Sign me up.
Yeah, would you agree with that there, Jordan? We see, you cover a lot of domestic esports in different games, but you see these teams kind of come up into the main league, and you want to see them after having a good result. It's almost like the first league should be where you get smacked and you gain the experience or whatever, but at least for the Comets, it seems like they're even kind of surpassing that expectation in this season.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said as much throughout my first sort of season watching Comets. I thought coming in that they were going to be a team that would get slapped a little bit, but that hasn't necessarily been the case. So yeah, very, very good early positive signs from this team, and obviously, yeah, next week's going to be a big week. I hope we see them in playoffs.
All right, well, Sentinels grabbed the win there against the Comets. Let's have a chat to one of the boys from the Sentinels. We've got Rainbow here for an interview, and we get to pick his brain about how that series went. So how are you feeling after that win there, Rainbow?
Pretty good. We kind of already know that we're top 2, so the games don't really matter anymore. But yeah, play the game anyway and see how it goes.
All right, I want to talk to you about your attack on Himmelsdorf, because a couple of weeks in a row we've seen you take the hill and basically send it down straight away into the flag. This time you changed things up a little bit, and it kind of felt like Comets were trying to counter read it and setting up for you. So were you big braining that, or was that just, you know, a bit of a coincidence how that all sort of played out, that you ended up like counter reading them, counter reading you?
No, I didn't want to do the strat again because that was a meme strat that we just kept running because it was funny. Like, that was pretty much the only reason we did it, because it's funny. And then when you win, it's extra funny because it's stupid. But we've done it a couple of times, so I don't really care about that strat anymore. So we just probed the map. It was like, oh, they're not spotting anything. They're turtling. And then we're just like, let's make an overmatch. And that's basically what they gave us with the E100. It got a bit close, though. I don't know how. Maybe you had a better perspective than I did. But yeah, still pull it through.
I think Dark Knight just got a couple of good clips in with the 50B. He felt like he was doing a bit of good work there. So maybe that was why.
Yeah.
Run me through the first round of Siegfried line, because I think it was Return that actually managed to initially spot that whole, you know, the bum rush that came around from Comets over the zero line, I believe. With the way how you guys had it set up, was this sort of the idea to just spread out across the sort of the entry into the town to have a better sort of view over the whole territory, or was it just more so just one of those, I guess, pocket strats for you, Rainbow?
So that was I'd call that like a default. We wanted to be able to control both caps without having to retake either. So we had the bat on the wide. So if they played that wide cap, we had that covered. If they played the east, we had the scone spot in the zero line. You can't cap east unless you take the north. So that's why we had Return spotting that early so we could rotate. Bat spots west early so we can rotate. And that way we don't have to play retake and guess where they are in their setup. Yeah, so it wasn't a pocket, it was a default.
Nice. Okay.
All right, well, you said it yourself, yeah, almost towards the end of the season, you're kind of just playing out the last couple of games. So give us a little bit of a vibe check on Sentinels as we head towards the finals.
A vibe check? I don't know, we're hanging in. We're a volatile team. It goes one day we're all, I don't know, it's a bit of a mess keeping everyone together. I don't know how we've shown up 5 players every game so far, but we have. So hopefully we can keep doing that into the semis.
Awesome. Thanks for having a chat with us, Rainbow, and let you go celebrate the win.
Cheers, thanks.
Good insight there from Rainbow. Maybe the vibe's good, maybe the vibe's not so good.
I'm sure it's fine.
I mean, you can't be too upset when you're right in the top of the tables and you're you know, gearing yourself up for an excellent weekend over in Melbourne playing some tanks.
Yeah, I mean, look, end of the day, I think Sentinels there going to be one of those teams that's going to be hard to beat on LAN. They're very, very experienced, so if they do make it to the finals, then yeah, I mean, they're going to be probably the favorite once again. Scorpions have looked good this season, but then again, they looked good last season too, and didn't really do too much in that grand final. So yeah, I mean, jury's out, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. Maybe there's still something there for Action X, who've been on a bit of a good rise lately. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. And look, next series here, Cthulhu, you're going to have, you know, the Matildas. They got some of the boys who are in the top of the individual performances. But just as Jordan said, Scorpions looking pretty good. How you feeling about that one coming up?
Look, I have somewhat of a similar sort of feeling about this one, similar to what we just had between Sentinels and Comets, where for Matildas, look, they seem to have had a few sort of shinings of the light in the darkness of the absolute bin of a tunnel that they found themselves in. But so they have the general potential to be that well-oiled machine. But it very much is up to them. Whereas you look in terms of consistency, Scorpions, there's a reason why they're top 2 currently. I believe still, well, if they end up winning, still would reside on the top of the leaderboard. So all things considered, favor is certainly going towards Scorpions, just purely for their consistency. But if Matildas do end up pulling out an upset, by all means, I'm all for it.
Well, yeah, we do have that series coming up right after the break, and we are through the second series of the night, but we've got one more coming up, so don't go too far, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Incredible things happen on Halloween, especially in World of Tanks. Here, witches gather for their Sabbath, and cats transform into radio operators. Let's just say Pumpkin Bash has begun.
Time for some fire!
This event will last 15 days. During this time, night will shroud the maps in this special game mode with an eerie mist, lit only by a shimmering full moon. These good old maps have never looked so mysterious. It's the perfect setting for some very unusual battles, and only Tier 6 to Tier 8 vehicles will be allowed to enter. Wheeled tanks will be placed in separate battles against other wheeled tanks. But if you don't have your own wheels, you can borrow them for free.
And remember to ease off the clutch gently.
If something goes wrong in battle and your vehicle is destroyed, no need to fear. You will have infinite respawns, as many times as you need. You won't even have to pay for repairs. After respawning, you'll be invulnerable for your first 10 seconds on the battlefield. There are 2 bases on each map. Capture both to win the battle. If neither team manages to capture the bases after 10 minutes, the team that caused the most damage wins. Remember, winning is more important than saving your vehicle.
Sure, let's break this tank too. I guess we're millionaires now.
Pumpkin Bash mode features special combat abilities that must be prepared before battle. To do so, you will have 3 slots. Passive abilities are active throughout the entire battle. Enchanted Armor increases damage from ramming and fully protects your vehicle against enemy ramming. Hail of Fire increases your vehicle's rate of fire. Hulk adds more hit points to your vehicle. And the Bullseye ability allows you to hit enemies on the neighboring map. Well, not quite. Active combat abilities reflect the character of each of the 4 witches and their magic cat. Commander Cordelia's recovery ability restores up to 20% of your vehicle's hit points and repairs all modules.
We'll be as good as new soon.
Aurelia von Alden's magic shield protects the vehicle against any damage, except for falling and drowning. It only works for 3 seconds, but it works.
We're invincible. Perfect. Impeccable.
Driver Deirdre's dash ability gives a strong boost to engine power and top speed. It works for 10 seconds.
We're about to take off!
Gunner Sybil's Fire Shot. Well, it says a lot about this witch's blazing personality. The ability sets the enemy on fire upon penetration.
Do you like it medium or well done?
And our whiskered radio operator can cast Decay on the enemy to knock them off their tracks and break their gun.
Oh, that was a mistake. Don't anger the cat!
On top of all this witchy magic, there are also special abilities. Gifts from a powerful pumpkin. Watch out for jack-o'-lanterns with special boosts that appear right in battle. Pick one up for an instant effect and amazing powers. A whirlwind rate of fire. Double damage. Module destruction. And another type of fire shot.
Put it at yourselves, I have paws!
Unlike regular combat abilities, these pumpkin gifts work permanently. For example, a vehicle that picks up Flaming Jack is guaranteed to light up enemies with every penetration. Also, picking up a gift instantly restores and increases your maximum number of hit points. It also surrounds the vehicle with a very beautiful glow. Each boost glows a different color. But here's the catch. You can only pick up one pumpkin gift, and once you do, you will be permanently spotted. Plus, anyone who destroys you will take the gift for themselves. This makes a boosted tank both the hunter and the prey. Repairs and shells are free in this mode. You will only have to pay for consumables and abilities. Combat abilities must be purchased before every battle, but they can be used in that battle as many times as you want. And even though you won't be able to earn credits and XP in this mode, there will be plenty of opportunities for rewards, because cats love rewards. A progression awaits you in the Pumpkin Bash event. It will be divided into 5 stages. Each stage will be available for a limited time and will focus on one of the crew members. To complete the stages, you need to complete special missions. There are 2 missions. The first brings you bonds and consumables. The second will earn you decals, spooky new 2D styles, and most importantly, these unique crew members. You'll also get ability charges at each stage, 1 free charge per day, a gift from the witch whose stage you're completing, and another charge for 1 bonus mission per stage. These missions are completed in random battles and provide charges for active and passive abilities. But that's not all. Each crew member has its own unique character and qualification. If you gather them all in one vehicle, you will get a group voiceover for all 5 characters. And if you miss a stage and don't manage to get the rewards, don't worry. You can purchase them in a special tab in the store.
Ha! Who's got 9 lives?
These rewards may be wickedly cool, but they're not our priority in this mode. The best Halloween treat this October is spooktacularly good gameplay and easy fun. Respawn as much as you want, use combat abilities, and help the witches transform into an invincible crew.
Have a good day.
Commanders, get ready for Update 1.18.1. Here's what you can expect. Sixth Sense forever and for everyone. Improvements to personal reserves. More changes to maps. Very cute witches and cats. Plus an exciting new mode. Onslaught is a brand new mode for Tier 10 vehicles. Battles take place in the 7v7 format with new mechanics and a rating system. In Onslaught, you'll need to use special skills that highlight and enhance each vehicle's role. Prepare for accelerated reloading for assault medium tanks, artillery strike for sniper medium tanks, and even hit point restoration for super heavy tanks. Each skill can only be obtained and improved in battle. You can also capture points of interest to order a reconnaissance operation on the whole map or request powerful artillery support. In Onslaught, you'll have the option to fight alone, with a friend, or in 7-person super platoons. That's right. For the first time, your entire team can form one big platoon. Solo and 2-person platoon players will still have access to the team-wide voice chat, so don't forget to enable it in your settings. Join Onslaught. Fight your way to the top. Play against equals and receive rewards, including the game's first progressive 2D style, Wing and Claw. One look at a tank's color, and you'll immediately know who's who on the battlefield. You can learn more about Onslaught and all of its features in our dedicated video, or in the article on the game portal. Now for something you've all been waiting for. Let there be light. The Sixth Sense perk has officially transformed into a Tank Commander feature. This means you'll no longer need to train it. Your way will always be illuminated by default, forever and for everyone. The crew members with Sixth Sense already trained will have their spent XP fully reimbursed and used to train the major qualification to 100%, as well as finish training an uncompleted skill or perk. The remaining XP will turn into crew member XP, which can be used to train a new skill or perk. If Sixth Sense was a 0 perk, you'll be able to choose a different 0 skill or perk in its place. However, you won't be able to reset the chosen 0 perk, so choose wisely. The skill and perk interface has been improved as well, with 0 perks now displayed separately. The increased focus directive that provided and improved the Sixth Sense perk will no longer be sold, but you will keep the directives you have in your depot. But that's not the only good news, Commanders. We're also reworking the entire personal reserve system. Now, the interface will be much easier to use. Reserves can be opened and activated in a few clicks, and each type will have its own timer. You will even be able to activate reserves right in battle. When activated, they'll apply to the current battle as well. The 4 old reserve categories have turned into 3: credits, combat XP, and a combined reserve for both free and crew XP. Moreover, all reserves will now have a duration of 1 hour. The rates have also been
We've got it, boys. We're up 4K. Just finish it off. Okay.
All right, this is close. Countdown.
I can
One,
finish with that.
2,
Hold it.
3, 4, 5,
5,
6,
6,
7,
7,
8.
8.
Oh,
You
one,
guys are
three,
counting too
two,
fast.
three,
It's
yeah.
seconds. It's
I
seconds.
can't count that fast. I can't count
One
that fast.
well,
melon.
I don't know what to do, bro. I
2
can't help you.
melon. 3 melon. 4
7,
You
18.
guys
melon.
use melons?
5 melon.
bro.
6
One
melon.
sec, I'm calling my work. I'm
Dude,
calling
you're the
my work.
turret, bro. Are you brain dead?
Calling my work.
Miserable, bro.
How long
Shoot
does he have on
the gun,
reload?
bro.
Reverse, reverse.
1, 2,
reverse.
Count the reload, count the reload, count the
4.
reload.
There we go.
Yeah, bat.
Yep. Focus the bat.
Was there other
I'm gonna
tanks?
try. I'm gonna try to get in front of you.
I'm not
Del,
yet.
bounce one shot.
Cindy in front of you.
I checked
Yeah.
the bat.
No. All right. I'll
Let our
We
boys
can
win,
have a
Cindy.
pick
We
with
just gotta hold.
277 now.
We just
Stop
gotta
it.
hold.
Yeah. I'm just
Wisconsin
scraping
over
the
Del,
here.
just
corner.
reload. Del, reload. Del, reload and retake south.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fantasy.
Get the fantasy up.
that's
Fucking
right. That's right.
bounce, bro.
I missed.
What? I bounce?
Why, man?
What?
We lose
I
to
bounced
power.
that?
It's over.
Don't shoot.
Campaign.
Oh,
I wanted the
Oh,
round.
Should we?
What do we want to do on attack?
Fantasy. Come on.
Fantasy.
Have a rep shit. It's
You know what they won? They counted the reloads.
What? How am I?
Why aren't you counting, Rymo?
All right, that's
1, 2, 3,
three.
4, 5, 6,
I'm erect for 40
8.
seconds.
Just shoot him. I think he's reloaded.
He's reloaded.
All right, that's all.
Welcome
back to ANZ Premier League, and we are about to get into the third season between the Matildas and the Scorpions, and as such, I have brought my own duck on the stream. She doesn't
Doesn't
go
look
quack,
like a duck.
but she is quite shy at the moment. Don't question this, Jordan. As you can see, this is clearly a duck.
I'm just saying that is not
Very
a duck.
happy to be here, as you can see.
It is a
Definitely
duck.
does not want to get down right now. And I'm going to let her go waddle off. So,
Alright, bye.
Are you excited? Are you excited for this series, Jordan?
Should I give you the real answer, or should I give you the I'm paid to do this answer? Because
Well, we
if
all
I'm
know you're not
being
paid to
real-
do this. No one here is getting paid. That's
If
that's
I'm
the truth,
being real,
Jordan.
this should be a super one-sided series. So, of all the series tonight, this is not going to be the best series on paper.
Okay.
But what do I know? Because I've got half my predictions wrong, probably more than half my predictions wrong this season. So
That is
maybe-
true,
maybe it'll be a good
and
game.
you said 100% win rate on Sand River attack as well. So look, I'm not going to
Well,
be
it
trusting you with too
was.
much.
I said it
To,
was. Not it will be. I actually said it's a
Okay.
defense-sided map, for what it's worth.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And Cthulhu, to get your insight on this series as well, have you seen the movie Matilda?
I actually have not. I'm uneducated in terms of that.
All right, let's just look at the teams. Let's have a look at Matilda's here, I guess, and we can get an idea of what's going on. You have Whippet. He's quite happy to be here. We saw him in the comms videos, critical. These are two of the top 5 players that we've been seeing pretty consistently. But like we were discussing earlier, Jordan, we're just not seeing the dubs come together.
Yeah, they're not a team that really seems to gel sometimes. I don't know. I also think a lot of the strats that they do tend to employ kinda are a bit of like go hard or go home, I guess, for lack of a better word. It either works really well or it works not at all. There's no sort of consistency or contingency. There's no like, oh, if this doesn't go right, then we fall back onto this. It's kind of like, we are full sending, and if that doesn't work, then I guess we lose. So when you play that kind of a game style, you live by the sword, you die by the sword, and a lot of the times Matilda so far this season have been dying. Now, based on the results of the game so far today, technically Matildas can still make it into playoffs. Comets are on 11 points, Panthers are on 10 points, Matildas on 6. If they win this game and the one next week, and then hope that Panthers and Comets both lose their games, they could still take 4th place. But for that to happen, they would have to beat Scorpions this week. They would have to beat Sentinels next week. So I'm not really backing them to do it, but I just feel like we should put it out there that it is technically possible still for Matildas.
All right, well, in step 1 of this plan, beating the Scorpions, Cthulhu, how does it happen in the dream scenario? What is the performance from Matildas?
Oh, Matildas. Right. So step 1, bring Dark. Step 2, don't let Critical yell that he needs to farm for the fantasy points and get him to play in team. 3, look, pray that Kiwi Dynamite can actually perform on his own, and then you got the win condition here.
All right, well, that might be the dream win condition for Matildas. in the dream scenario, but in all of the other not dream scenarios, we'd probably be seeing the other team in this matchup having a pretty good day at the office. So let's have a little bit of a run through their roster, and you can tell us how. I mean, obviously Benny is a big factor here with that look, but outside of that, Jordan, give us a bit of a run through as to how these guys have ended up at the top of the board and why they might be one of the teams to keep an eye on heading into the finals.
Look, they're just a really consistent roster in terms of the roster changes. They haven't made any roster changes actually for a couple of seasons now.
Oh, look at that man!
And you get obviously a lot of game time as a unit, and then regardless of whether or not you're having X or Y player in the roster at any given time, pretty much everyone knows all the strats by that point. Pretty much everyone's comfortable with everyone, and you sort of have a good understanding of who plays what roles well. So it it sort of all comes together for Scorpions. It's a bit of a different approach to what some other teams have gone through, where they have tried to make roster changes to upgrade. I think Scorpions have tried to sort of work as a cohesive unit and tried to improve upon, the players that they had, and sort of tried to make the weaker players better, and obviously improve the better players to a point where they are potentially some of the top players in the league. And I think it has generally worked out for Scorpions. That ecosystem that they've built has basically put them as at least a top two team 2 seasons in a row. And it obviously isn't looking like it's going to change this season. So
yeah, I think Cthulhu a couple of weeks ago we were chatting about Russian being a heavy hitter in this roster, but also Raspberry coming on in and seems to be doing well for himself.
Yeah, look, Raspberry, sort of in a similar way how, for Matilda's Dark has been the big sort of development force, I guess. Raspberry, in terms of Scorpions, yeah, he does his sort of due diligence in terms of just how he plays. He's the one that you tell him, well, just go do that one specific objective. He will do it and then some. I mean, you look at his accuracy, 81% is very, very nice and sturdy. 79.8, almost 80% pen rate as well is quite nice, quite stable. So overall, look, he's a team player. He's a player that can make those sort of big plays, and he sort of is able to listen as well to the calls. He's the guy for the job that basically needs to be done.
There you go. Let's have a look at the other head-to-head player that we're throwing up in this matchup between the Scorps and the Matildas. There's plenty of players to kind of pick from the Matildas squad, to be honest. You could kind of pick any of the boys that were sitting up near the top of the standings there, Jordan.
What I almost want to say, though, is I'd rather not talk about a specific individual from Matildas, because it's actually a perfect segue, by the way. You're welcome. Because I think highlighting individuals on Matildas is highlighting the wrong things. The issues aren't with the individuals. The issues are with the team cohesion and the calls and the strategy and how it all sort of fits together for Matildas. The individuals are good players. So where things are breaking down is definitely elsewhere. So it's not as if we can go, X or Y needs to play really well today. I think everyone sort of tends to play reasonably well. It's just that they're not in the right places at the right times, and they're not doing the damage when they need to. So hopefully that'll get fixed tonight.
All right, well, we get the map picks for both teams here. Cthulhu, we've got M for Muravanka, we've got S for Prokhorovka. All of the alliteration going on absolutely flawlessly here. How you feeling about this map, Paul?
Honestly, I'm actually quite keen for this one because Muro has been sort of, even before the rework, Matilda's back when they were known as the Conquerors as well. They were actually quite, on a few occasions, were trying to push for the Muravanka to actually be the play. So honestly, going into this one, I don't hate this map pick. Actually, matter of fact, I think Matildas have one of those sort of setups where they could actually challenge even the scoreline against the Scorpions, albeit again it will be an uphill battle. But on Muro, out of all the things, by all means, go for it. I'm all keen for it.
Well, let's see if that analysis does prove correct as we head into our first side of the third series.
Yeah, Muro, a bit of an interesting one here for Scorpions. Not a map that they have had a huge amount of success on, so I don't think that's actually too bad of a map selection from Matildas, to be honest. But if Scorpions can get just one round victory here, which I'd probably back them to do on the defense more likely than anything else, then I think they'll be happy with that. Very, very fast push down the 7 line here from Russian. That is ballsy. that is almost a counter read, maybe, that Scorpions know Matildas are not going to have a tank down in that direction on the map. Otherwise, Russian is literally just inting his life away. So that's worked out really nicely for Scorpions. Though there is a response, obviously, from Matildas. They're pushing aggressively onto the one flag with a double IS-7 setup.
I just wanted to quickly point out, I'm seeing an abnormality here, at least in my eyes. JT on a mouse, which feels a little bit unusual to me, just in general, sort of seeing him rather than something that is, I would imagine, something like an E100 is usual, or maybe even, you know, some of the more unconventional, say, Cough 113. Yeah, look, JT sort of introducing a little bit of an interesting one, but Matilda is once again resorting to the old faithful Unga Bunga.
Yeah, and it's not working. They've walked into a crossfire. So this is kind of the issue that I have with Matildas. It's sort of like, well, we're going to send it, and we're going to hope that we can make that work. And so far, they're doing a lot of damage. They're probably going to take Benny down, but I just wonder where they go from there. I mean, Raspberry's in a position to probably 2v1 Critical and whip it. He's obviously got Russian rotating in through the back as well, and JT getting shots in from the side. So it is a 1-for-1 trade, but it'll end up being a 2-for-1 trade, and Scorpions are looking much better in that department. Raspberry can't quite get the speed to ram Critical to death, so Russian's going to have to finish that one off. And from here, it's probably game over for Matildas, because I think Russian still has 2 left in the clip. One more for Joatora is indeed there.
Yeah, there we go.
And, well, now it's a 2-on-4, so there you have it.
Yeah, there you have it. Yeah, very sort of basic turnout for Scorpions, where, yeah, they've played almost far too many teams that have opted for that sort of full-on rush. And out of all the teams, I would say, actually, between Scorpions and Sentinels, I'd say Scorpions are much more well-versed in the art of countering the rushes and sort of even preemptively setting up for them, because even the mouse of JT kind of actually worked out almost perfectly there. Good pre-frag, though, but, well, I say that for a brief moment, it was a good frag before the trade-off. So, but look, yeah, things didn't really particularly work out there for Matildas, given that as well. I believe Joatora has taken quite a fair bit of a time off as well from the roster, plus Mary as well. So, yeah, it's definitely a rougher end of the bargain there for Matildas, I reckon.
Certainly seems that way. Mary Turnip is going to be taking his time to go down here. I mean, Mary's been playing a fair bit. He's got 76% participation, but Joatora only 15% of the game so far for Matildas, so it's kind of nice to see him back, I guess, in a sense, but yeah, that's not a very nice welcome back, unfortunately.
Yeah, you know, he's been turn up a fair bit, you know, and look, unfortunately, they didn't turn up on the first half of that map. They go down 0-1 on their map pick, Jordan, so do they need a 1-1 here? Like, what are they aiming for? Is it already going too fast in the wrong direction?
Well, when it's your own map pick, you're aiming for a 2-0. So, yes, they do need a 1-1 bare minimum, I'd say. It's not looking good.
Alrighty. Well, what did you see there from the Scorpions? You're kind of talking about their ability to deal with aggression. This might be a good kind of stylistic matchup for them.
Look, yeah, for Scorpions, I think they done everything basically almost by the book. Good sort of play by Russian as well in the early stages, where he just basically full-on sent through the bush line towards basically nearly the spawn of Matildas, where that sort of circle around and sort of, yeah, just Russian doing just Russian things, really, because, I mean, remembering his performances back in Season 4 as well, he was that person that would flank around, whether it's the 50B, whether it's the Bat Chat, he will be the one to, you know, find those finishers, find the final shots, the damage in, whilst the rest of the team is sort of serving as that one big bait, really, for him. So things are seeming to be now back into a very much of a stable sort of swing of things. Russian sort of back closer to the higher end of the leaderboard. And yeah, look, from Scorpions, apart from, you know, the pick of the mouse on the Muro, everything else seemed pretty well trained and well prepared.
There you go. Anything kind of standing out to you in terms of the stats here, Jordan? You obviously got a couple of the boys not doing too badly in terms of the damage there for Matildas, but again, just not able to kind of push it across the line.
I mean, they just put themselves into a crossfire, so what you're kind of looking for there from Scorpions is once your enemy drives into your crossfire, you're hitting your shots and you're penning your shots. And for the most part, yep, really good conversion rate there from everyone, actually. So, yeah, happy with that from Scorpions. I think Matilda's kind of played it into Scorpions' hands. And to answer the question you asked, Lulu, actually, about the stylistic difference between these teams, I think it actually works out fantastically for Scorpions because they are a team that tends to like to play a little bit slower. You know, they like to set up default. They like to get their info. They like to play that timer. And as a result, they're going to be set up, generally speaking, if Matilda's is going to just run into them like what happened here. So, yeah, like what you saw, Matilda's just drives into a crossfire and Scorpions farms them, more or less. And I think that's going to happen a few times tonight, I'd say.
Does the side changing up kind of change the approach at all for the boys on Matilda's there, Cthulhu? Or, you know, I don't know, the CS term is you play 2 T sides, so do they kind of have 2 attack sides?
Yeah, look, maybe things will really change up for Matilda's, assuming that if they are looking to continue basically going for the full 5-man pushes. So what I'm expecting here is going to be just one flag push and not a whole lot of presence of the force, which means even more free real estate for Russian.
All right, well, pass mark on their map pick, as Jordan highlighted, would be a 1-1 at this point now that they find themselves down 0-1. Let's see if they can try and shoot for that.
Let's see, indeed. Jury's out. But I think defense actually on Muravanka is a little difficult now after the changes. So I'm interested to see what Matildas have got. T100 LT from Whippet, making a very similar run to Russian. I guess it's not as scary.
That's a copy.
What?
That's a copy of the push from Whippet. The same thing that Russian did.
But it kind of makes a little bit more sense when you're in a T100 LT than a Batchat, I think, to be making that kind of a push. But yeah, it looks to have worked out. Russian's eaten a lot of damage.
I'm not particularly too sure about the double STB pick here from Scorpions, which feels a little bit off. Usually, I mean, I'd personally probably replace one of the STBs with a minnow, but again, there's a reason why I'm not on JT's team. So I'm definitely keen to see what's the sort of the biggest scenario, because so far it seems like just Raspberry separated himself from the rest of the team, meaning Dark is able to sink a free shot in him. Joe Torres should be able to sink in another one. Already 1800 HP, doesn't particularly look too flashy, really.
Yeah, well, Scorpion's going to try and take that leaf out of Matilda's book and see if they can do it a little bit better. Raspberry leading that charge. He has taken a lot of damage so far, but they have kind of been able to isolate Joe Otora here. So there may be a world where it ends up being a 1-for-1 trade. Joe going down for Raspberry, who actually is still kind of alive at the moment. Obviously, that HP deficit is starting to be brought back by Scorpion slowly but surely. Meanwhile, Matilda's obviously trying to cap out a little bit. They're kind of having troubles with Russian. It's a battle on 2 fronts. I mean, this is beyond impossible to actually cover everything. So we'll jump back down to the 2 flag here and watch what JT's going to try and get done here in his STB1 as he, I guess, just tries to get as much damage out before he does go down here. There's another good shot in from him, but this should be the end there as Saxon closes it out. But it is 4-on-3. Soon to probably be 3-on-3. Russian trying to get out of here with his life.
He might just actually be able to duck away. Dang. Maybe not. Probably not. Yeah, nah, no shot. Okay, well, yeah, 3v3. Matilda's leading very heavily, though, in the health department. I mean, 7k to 3.6. With Raspberry basically 1 HP, but it doesn't look particularly too great. The one thing that Matilda's could do to absolutely throw the chances in the bin is to allow Dark to be isolated, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So yeah, look, 1-1 scoreline very much seems to be like it is the case. Hopefully enough, one of the closest scorelines as well.
Yep, indeed. Well, Knight is going to go around that corner and see if he can try to salvage anything here. Knight and Benny, they should never win this fight. And it doesn't seem as though they are. The M454 is bouncing everything. And so that'll be pretty much that. Raspberry not going to get anything done either. So, yeah, look, a good little turnaround there from Matilda's. I guess Scorpion's trying to do the same. sort of thing as what Matildas was trying to do on the defense there. Didn't work out for them either. Nice little response in from Matildas, but 1-1 on your own map pick is maybe a little bit less than ideal. Obviously, you'd like to go for the 2-0. So it means that Matildas do have some work to do in bringing it back in the next couple of rounds.
Yeah, they're kind of swapping it over onto Proc next. So how are you feeling about their prospects on that map there, Cthulhu?
Honestly, Proc could get rather interesting because so far, sort of both teams were able to demonstrate us sort of similar playstyles, at least in terms of the scouting game. So neither of the teams really seems to be lacking too much of it. So whilst sort of ultimately Proc, I'd say, would lean a little bit more towards Scorpions, the way how Matildas actually played it out wasn't particularly bad either. Yes, you could technically attribute at least partial success because Scorpions decided to just pull what Matildas basically did to them. Maybe for the intents and purposes of just showing as an example, sort of, see what we did there, this is exactly what you done, and now you probably feel stupid, sort of deal. So, for all intents and purposes, actually, it's just, yeah, look, Matildas did their due diligence. They didn't really allow this whole thing to slip out of their hands. So going into Prokhorovka, as long as they keep up the info game, as long as they can, say, isolate whoever out of Scorpions will be on the spotting game, yeah, they might actually have a very real chance to come off with a dub.
Is that a bit more cohesive for you, Jordan, from Matildas?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was a bit all over the place, though, was it not? Like, it worked out, but it was, you know, some tanks up to the north, some tanks down to the south. It sort of felt like a bit of a cluster of fun is the word I tend to like to use. That's what you're going to get when you're watching Matildas games. I think it's generally peak chaos, and Matildas sometimes they can bring their opponents down to their level, and I think that's what they've kind of done to Scorpions in that round, and they've obviously been able to walk away with it there. But yeah, I don't know that that's the kind of game that you're going to win on a consistent basis, right? That really feels like a bit of a 50-50. I mean, looking at the graph here actually does tell a bit of a story, right? Shots from JT, Knight, Russian, all about 50% pen rate. Benny as well. So the only one sort of upholding their end of the bargain there is kind of Raspberry. Obviously, Whippets had an absolute stinker, but he was in a T100 LT, so that's fine. But just better shots fired, better shots penned from Matildas, and Scorpions maybe just rushing their shots a little bit too much there and not being able to get their damage through.
Is that what you saw from that game for you, Cthulhu? Like, putting that all into context and seeing Matildas kind of push it through. Obviously, we've kind of highlighted that they have some good individual players. If a team doesn't hit their shots against them, they're just going to drop the ball?
Yeah. Really, with Matildas, yeah, you let them chomp away even a slight bit of ground, and if you give them ground to really expand, they can expand very rapidly, despite the fact that, yeah, we've been roasting them on having, you know, general sort of problems with overall, you know, coordination, the comms, the play, whatever it may be. So, yeah, look, I think here it's just more so a case of, yes, Scorpions just allowed the Matildas to sort of take a bite, but instead they gave them the whole meal, really, at least in round number 2.
Well, that sounds like good value to me, and I'm hoping that just like a full meal, this series will continue to deliver and we make it to all 5. Let's go into Prokhorovka.
Let's go indeed and see whether or not there's going to be a little bit more in this one from either team. I mean, obviously, you'd want to be seeing the 2-0 if you're Scorpions. I think if they do give up a point to Matildas, that's a pretty disappointing result for them today. Not that it would really matter. Like, obviously, they're either first or second in terms of seeding, so you can make that argument. But I would like to think that Scorpions should win this series pretty comfortably. This is a bit of a YOLO push from Russian. He's gone very deep on that spotting run, but he's gotten away with it, and he spotted pretty kill in mid only.
I will say, though, Elfish, that at least personally to me, it feels rather interesting that it is Russian on the CS out of all the things. You know how you usually tell me that, you know, for you it's weird to see Bales on a CS63, you more so prefer the Batchat. That's the case here for me for Russian, because I'm so accustomed to seeing Russian on an autoloader in one shape or the other that seeing him on the CS on a map like Prokhorovka feels hugely unorthodox.
I mean, it is the like-for-like replacement, though, is it not? Like, it's better probably to put the medium player in the medium tank rather than get a heavy tank player back over to a medium, which is a completely
don't
different
get me
skill
wrong,
set.
yeah.
But yeah, I think the reason why I'm hung up on it with Bales is I feel like Bales just have so much more impact in the bat chat generally. But Russian actually, I think, can be pretty versatile in the CS63, so I don't kind of mind seeing it. And actually, I will sort of go back on my statement a little bit that I have seen a couple of instances of Bales getting a fair bit of work done in that CS63, so it has actually been quite impactful lately. But look, I'm always still, like I said, a bit of a biased fan towards the bat chat, and we'll see what Dark can do to maybe keep that opinion.
Yeah,
Russians
yeah,
spotting the 1-2 line though.
Because usually for me, say you tell me the Scorpion CS63 player, for me the first person that pops up in my head is Aussie, really. So
Exactly, and but Aussie's not here tonight, so
yeah, but Aussie's obviously not being here tonight. So yeah, next up on the line would obviously be
And by the way, I think Scorpions might lose this round because they have isolated the CS63. That's Russian. He hasn't moved. He's dead. There's a bat chat and a 277 on top of him. And JT's already been taken down to 940 HP. So Crit, he's going to get farmed a little bit. You do have the IS-7 up in A6, but end of the day, it should be a 1-for-1, 1-for-2 now probably that JT is going to go down as well. Russian's definitely a goner. Critical down, 2-for-2. How long is Russian going to live for? Has he killed the 277? I think that's from Scorpions have killed the 277 of Whippet, and Dark's run out of ammo. Scorpions have absolutely bamboozled me, and they've bamboozled Matildas as well. This is illegal. It's illegal for Russian to live there.
Hold up. Where? What? How is Russian alive amidst the double push between a medium tank and a heavy? What happened to the 277 is beyond me.
There had to have been
Mary's
shots from
about
Benny
to go.
and Knight, or rather, most likely from Knight, and maybe JT. I don't know if JT had an angle in
No,
there as well.
I highly doubt that JT had the hand in there. But yeah, definitely you could sell me on the idea that Knight would have gotten the shots in. But wow, that was a big turnaround. Because I was with you on the idea that Russian, about to go down. That's what I was highlighting at the very beginning. You rid Scorpions of their site, you get free real estate. But instead, it seems like Scorpions just living rent-free in the heads of Matilda here.
Wow. All right, well, that was certainly an entertaining side there to kick off Proc. Break us down what happened there, Jordan, because you found that one pretty exciting.
Well, okay. We're watching Matildas, all right? So Matildas did a Matildas play, and they just drove, and they didn't stop driving. I think, like, you guys play water tanks, right? You press the R button a few times. You don't even have to hold down W anymore, okay? It's like cruise control. They put cruise control on, and they went from one side of the map to the other side of the map, and they thought, that's our strategy. And then they were like, oh, we found Russian. We should kill him. But then they didn't. And then Scorpions killed them. And then Russian somehow lived. I don't know what happened there. There was cross shots obviously coming in from mid onto the Matilda's tanks pushing down. But the fact that Russian survives there is just absolutely bananas.
Can we chuck it on the stats board for like who drove the furthest? Because Dark was like
there's mileage. Look,
yeah, that's what I was saying. Dark was sending it, bro. He literally went. I once drove from west to east coast of the USA and north to south on a bit of a road trip, and I dare say Dark's done a little bit more mileage than I would have done in that game.
Yeah, look, I just don't know. I don't know. They have the 277 and the bat chat, and they do not manage to kill Russian, who ends up putting out 4.3k. He's blocked 880, so that probably hasn't helped, because it's a CS63. You probably don't want to be bouncing shells off of it.
Didn't you have Russian in your fantasy, Jordan?
I do.
That's a big 120.
Sometimes, but sometimes I don't. I didn't get to change my fantasy team today, so I actually don't have him in. Otherwise, I probably would have. Issue is I don't always know if Russian's going to play. That's the problem with Scorpions. Because they always change their roster around. So
Russian really out here, just like
it's Russian roulette.
Yeah, it's Russian roulette. Haha, yeah. Look, it's a funny. But what is even funnier is Russian being pushed by the two tanks, and all he's got is like, I have a CVS optics which gives me 502 view range, and still cannot find anyone who asked the Matildas about their win because there's non-existent.
Yeah,
that's a big dog, honestly.
Also, I'll say, by the way, the IS-7 that gets up and around the back for Scorpions, pretty good too. Who was in that? That was Raspberry. And he's got some pretty sizable damage out there as well. I think he got some good shots onto the back of Critical, who was like obviously peeking that mid-ridge, and that is also a bit of chaos sort of thrown into the ranks for Matildas, but yeah, I just don't know how Russian survives. Maybe we'll see it in the replays here.
Here we go. Look at him sending it. That could have been anyone's house, and he just doesn't care.
Yeah. It's not a good place to live in Prokhorovka. I mean, you can see Knight right here. He's got his gun trained in the direction of Whippet and Russian. So,
yeah, so
that'll obviously be where a lot of that damage is coming from. But, you know, still, it's a bat chat with a full clip.
One.
Okay, let's watch this. Missed one. Where's the 277?
3.
The 277 is just getting farmed. Like, the 277 is not even in a position to shoot
What is
Russian.
Whippet doing?
And he's already on 130 HP. So
Okay,
that's the
Whippet-
problem.
So Whippet got one shot in, and then
He's dead.
Oh, I can't believe he lived that long. I honestly cannot believe that. That's insane. Just like hiding behind little hump of the hill.
Little hill?
Love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes
a
that's
little
all you
hill
need.
that could.
Yep. And look, the boys on Matildas, they've got a bit of a hill to climb to Cthulhu. So let's see if they can do it and push it into that cliffhanger, the 5th map of the series.
Oh, look, I'm not gonna lie. After the first round, I don't think that we are going to see Cliff at this rate and at this push.
All right.
So
here we go.
Yeah.
Watch this.
Oh.
Double IS7.
Oh,
Batch out
boy.
CS63.
Oh,
you know what I'm
boy.
seeing?
What?
Cruise control.
Oh no.
Come on,
I
surely.
mean, sure. Oh boy. I mean, even in the cruise control, this is going to be an absolute bloodbath here, Jordan. Ooh. Okay. First shot in actually went towards.
Raspberry's in the bowl, though.
towards-
Raspberry's in the bowl. And that's going to be a good spot to be in. Because he can get these great cross shots. And Matildas are going to drive over the top. So, here we go.
Oh.
Bye, Benny.
Okay.
You,
That's an ammo rack.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, actually, because now Scorpions are going to have to dig this out of a bit of trouble. Dark is on fire. That'll help out. Joatora down relatively low. This is still winnable for Scorpions if they can keep JT up. They do not. It's down to a 5-on-3. Very quickly brought back to the 4. And Dark could go down here. He has to be the next tank down. Will be. And Scorpions now in control.
Oh, okay, that turned around yet again to a complete 180. Just as we were thinking, I was about to say, damn, if Scorpions end up getting pushed to the cliff, that is a turnaround and a half. Especially given just how chaotic majority of the rounds go. But no, at this point, yeah, Mary is about to get absolutely bullied unless Whippet pulls out again another ammo rack miracle. Yeah, things are certainly not going to look particularly too great. There's a 3k for Russian. Russian falls courtesy of Whippet. Yes, Whippet will be able to clip out yet another bit of damage, but it's a little too late.
Too little, too late indeed. Bad chat, though. I mean, look, can he get out of here alive? Probably not. Oh, that was a HE shot in there as well from Knight. 543 straight into Whippet. 670! They're just bullying him. And they're bullying Matildas out of this game as well. I mean, the IS-7 is not a slow tank once it gets going, and Raspberry is going. Doesn't matter, though, because Knight's got the shot through, and Scorpions will win the series very comfortably in the end. 3-1.
Oh, no,
JT's
JT
really
dying.
happy about it. Hopefully, we'll see him at finals.
Yeah, I hope so.
So,
at least
GG.
he didn't choke that hard in the server. That's all I'm saying. Look, it's a pretty nice 3-1 win for Scorpions there, Jordan. They keep themselves up the top of the tally in terms of you know, the league, and I'd say that's going to give them a pretty nice seeding heading into finals now.
I would say so. Yep, very much. Next week's games, do they make a difference? I just have to check the standings again.
We're going to go through
Oh,
that later,
Jordan
Jordan.
is doing
You
the
need
maths.
to suspend your disbelief.
They do.
We need
They
to,
do. They
you know
do.
how this show works. We're meant to be breaking down the game, okay? And look,
There's not much to break down, Pilsy,
because you
unfortunately.
can't do that. Clearly, you're lost for words. I'm going to get my main man Cthulhu to tell us all about that last game there on Prokhorovka.
Look, it was relatively all simple. Both teams sort of agreed that, hey, we're going to attempt to brawl each other. For Matildas, for the most of it, it's just been a idea of, hey, let's introduce some mobility to it, some mediums. Well, initially it worked out. I mean, they got an ammo rack, but from there on, came in the question, well, how about the endurance game during those brawls? And that's where sort of Scorpions were able to flex, because whilst Matilda's introduced the double mediums, I believe it was all heavies from Scorpions, which basically meant higher health pool, more shots to be able to tank before they do go down, and ultimately that actually ended up being the big deal breaker. I mean, you look at Knight, he was able to just keep on farming up the damage. The rest of the team still managed to keep up relatively well, bar Benny, who unfortunately just got bullied out of existence. But at that point, really, well, it didn't really matter that he fell. The rest of the team was able to just keep on dishing.
That doesn't even seem like that different of a win condition to what Sentinels were doing with all the heavier tanks earlier, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of it plays out a little bit differently because it's Prokhorovka rather than Himmelsdorf. But
yeah.
I suppose the idea is the same. As long as you're able to trade down effectively, even if you're losing tanks, you're still going to have the DPM, particularly when you've got the double Super Conqueror set up, and Matilda's does not, to kind of keep yourself in the game. I mean, even the E5s are quite hefty DPM sort of as well. So it was just like it kind of got to the edge. It got to the tipping point for Scorpions, but it never quite went over the cliff that Matildas could pretty much not lose from. So Scorpions able to bring it back. Good trades come through. I was a little bit scared when JT went down. I thought, uh-oh, hang on. 3v5 might be a bit of a problem. But, you know, as we've seen from Scorpions in the past, really good focus fire. Clearly quite good communication as well. So they know who they need to be taking down, and no one's really like wasting their shots or anything like that. So generally pretty good pen rates across the board as well. Makes a big difference.
So we've seen, I guess, contextually kind of two similar games in the last two series of the night here between the Sentinels taking on the Comets and Scorpions against Matildas. Does that kind of inform you at all about about the top teams heading in towards the finals there, Cthulhu? Does that fill you with any more confidence for either team, or are you noticing any trends that might be interesting you as you head closer towards the finals?
Look, I think, at least personally for me, my eyes are sort of set on how will AX will really perform in their first, possible first playoffs appearance. Because if they manage to lock it in at the end of the regular season, this is, as we highlighted before, their first chance, first appearance in the playoffs. This could be the big sort of opportunity for them to really, push it. Whereas for the most of it, the remainder of the bracket seems still pretty sort of stock standard. You still have the Sydney Derby to come around. You still have possibly the Panthers to be able to make it into the top four and basically just play it out. Because I mean, remembering last season, I believe it was actually Wymo from Sentinels that actually tried to challenge JS to come meet him on the finals or play against them on the finals. Unfortunately, that never actually came to fruition because Scorpions just said no and took the finalist spot for themselves. So all things considered, look, this is still looking like a pretty solid season, and playoffs could still get quite volatile.
Righty, well, we did have Scorpions taking the dub there as we head towards the end of the season, but let's have a chat to one of the boys from Scorpions and get his thoughts about how that series went. So we've got Knight on the line here. Are you happy with that dub, mate?
Yeah, sort of. It's just closing out the end of the season, I guess, really.
Yep.
Well, look, it was a bit of an interesting series to watch, let's just say that. Give us a bit of an idea as to what it's like to play against Matildas, because it just seems like they like to hold the W key. So is that something that you guys are sort of mentally prepared for and set up for, or?
Yeah, so first game on Muro was meant to be like, by the way, all the matches this week that we had planned, we literally didn't train Muro at all because we didn't think anyone would be crazy enough to pick it. But the trap we had set up on Muro was ruined by Benny. So it was meant to be like everyone stay silent because we were like, okay, they're going to 5-man push us if they just see Raspberry. So yeah, that's what we went into that one thinking.
Fair enough.
Look, my main question. Look, I've pinged Napalm in the general chat of the PL Discord. How much of the actual mantra practice has been going in, and sort of how much did that end up reshaping the mental? Like, is it? Are we at this point that literally nothing rattles Scorpions, or is there still a little bit more of the channeling to be done?
To be honest, I think there's more mantra than actually shooting tanks these days. So yeah, we're kind of in that position. But no, we I don't know. We're very chill. So we just kind of go into every game most of the time just relaxed, and we see what comes of it.
Alrighty, well, congrats on the win there against the Matildas. Only one game or so left in the season for you guys to play, so I'll let you stay relaxed and go relax some more. Maybe go get yourself some rest there, Knight.
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Yeah.
There you go. So good dub from Scorpions. I think kind of expected, and hopefully keeping an eye on them as they head over towards LAN. How does that kind of change things though, Jordan? You know, obviously see them have a really good regular season here. Once you've casted a couple of these lands now, how does that kind of change things once you head over to that kind of environment?
I don't know that it changes a huge amount for me because actually Scorpions had a pretty good regular season last season as well, and they weren't able to really test Sentinels too much on land. So I think the biggest question for me is going to be what actually is the 5 core of Scorpions going to be if I shouldn't say when necessarily, but if they play on LAN, who are going to be the 5 players that they do actually use? Because obviously you can't be sort of swapping in and out when you're on LAN. So that's the first question for me. And, you know, a game against Matildas, I don't think really tells us a lot. Like, this is a match that Scorpions should win every day of the week. So, you know, have to sort of see how they go next week in whatever matchup they will be playing, which is against Panthers. Again, probably not going to tell us too much because Panthers seem to have been in a bit of a rut at the moment as well. So I don't really think we're going to get a good idea of what Scorpions is going to bring to the table until we actually get into playoffs and really start to see them sort of knuckle down and figure out what they want to be doing for finals.
Yeah, is there any other kind of teams that you would expect to kind of vibe with that more sort of pressure environment, Cthulhu?
I think Scorpions could be literally the only one that would thrive on this on the chaotic nature of the game and of the play. Whereas I mean, because remembering the talk with Rainbow as well, he's sort of on that borderline about to edge the insanity, saying, oh well, one day we sort of ready to full on tilt, the next day we're all good. So. It's it's that perpetual sort of standing on the edge. You either dip into the full on insanity and say, well, I now see the whole world in purple colors, or it's all oh yeah, this is not bad. This is fine. And then you look at AX, who just at this point just became my stable providers of the copium tank. So there's we dipping into all parts of the spectrum here.
Well, there you go. Restoring a little bit more order to things. We'll take a look at the results from today and get an idea. In case any of you guys missed some of the games, we did have a big... I mean, the 3-2 doesn't even tell the story of that game there, Jordan, for ActionX.
Yeah, look, I think that was a little bit too close for comfort, obviously. Panthers, they would be very disappointed not to have won that series up 2-0. They really should have closed it out. Had no shortage of opportunities to do so, but... let a few important rounds slip, and that's how it is. It's going to give them a much more difficult time of qualifying through to the playoffs next week, but obviously not impossible still. Depends on the result of that ActionX versus Comets game next week. Comets will need to get themselves a win. ActionX, I think, are generally pretty safe, but Panthers, obviously, they also really want to pick themselves up a win next week. So playing against Scorpions, probably not going to be too easy to do that. So a lot of things have to go right for the Panthers next week to be able to make it through to playoffs. Otherwise, it's looking quite likely that it will be the Comets. Either way, yeah, some interesting results actually coming through from this week, I thought. But for the most part, yeah, pretty expected. But sets us up nicely for next week. That's for sure.
All right, well, let's have a look at who's a bit more wrinkly, who's a bit more smooth in terms of the brain capacity for this week. And at least for, as far as we're concerned, Jordan, we have very smooth brains, and Cthulhu, he's starting to close the gap a little bit. I was making fun of him before, but he has returned to monkey brain, and it has worked very well for him.
Yeah, look, all I can say is for Elfish, he's yet to get himself the full all 3 out of 3 predictions. So all that does need to be said is L+ ratio.
L+ ratio,
impossible.
indeed. Yep. Plus, when did I ask? Plus, let's look at
Plus
the
Cope
team
and Steve.
standings. You don't usually see that as part of the plus, but I'm going to throw that one in there. As look, it's worth having a chat about. You want to talk through how this is kind of breaking down, Jordan, and set the context before we take a look at the games next week.
Yeah, okay. I mean, TLDR, Matildas definitely cannot make playoffs, so we can cross them out. Scorpions and Sentinels cannot drop out of first and second, so the only context for both of those two is that they're fighting for first. Doesn't really matter because they'll play against each other one way or the other in the playoffs anyway. So what's really important is the Action X versus Comets game next week, which will be more or less the deciding factor for Comets rather than for Action X. Action X are already confirmed to go through to playoffs. They can't drop below fourth, even if Panthers wins and Comets win as well. So the only thing that can really change here is whether or not Comets lose, and if that happens, whether or not Panthers win, and by how much as well.
Well,
so that's
keeping an eye on those storylines. We'll take a look at who they're going to be playing next week. And Cthulhu, you can have a little bit of a chat about the expectations. Obviously, Action X and Comets. Jordan kind of already outlined that one. That's going to be a case of Comets need that win so much more than Action X do. But on the other side of things, you've got the Panthers, who had a bit of a rough day at the office today, at least in the last 3 games of their series, going up against, the cool, calm, collected Scorpions.
Yeah, look, absolutely. This is sort of the final chance for Panthers to really make do. They could use and abuse the fact that, as outlined by Knight, they just play the game. The last few matches, quote unquote, don't really matter for them per se. So if Panthers do end up coming out with something sort of unusual, unorthodox, then maybe we could see Panthers actually still make it into the playoffs. Apart from that, yeah, look, I think the odds are generally all sort of set there. For Matildas versus Sentinels, yeah, I'm borderline expecting this to be, a meme fest to a certain degree.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, as highlighted in the chat for us, luckily I get all of my opinions fed to me, so I don't really need to do a whole lot of thinking. Sentinels probably want to do pretty well in that series so they can get a better seed heading into the finals, and we get some nice little veto advantages and whatnot. However, obviously our tanks games are done for tonight, but if you guys were looking forward to some more tanks, then maybe next Monday you can go and check out the B-League. We do have some games over on the B-League coming up, and we've been talking so much, Cthulhu, about how much the Comets are doing well for themselves, but here are some of the teams that you might want to be keeping an eye on the come-up for next season.
Oh, look, definitely B-League has been a very entertaining one to watch, because this is where that raw talent gets gauged. This is where you find the apps or the gamers of the gamers. Personally, for me, look, I've been a Leopards enjoyer for quite a fair few games. The Canberra Centurions versus Badgers, I think this is actually could be one of the matchups from the promo relegation bracket as well, from the last season as well. So this could be a bit of a grudge match, which I'm actually quite looking forward to. And then the Hellcats versus Archers. Look, even though I am based in Auckland, I just for other intents and purposes, I am backing the Hellcats on this.
Alrighty, well, if you can't wait until next Monday, then there's good news for you that we have the JPL coming up tonight, pretty soon on in here. Jordan, do you like JPL?
I do like JPL, mostly because there's still a couple of players kicking around from the old days that I used to watch. So I do like to sort of chime in with him. I think Mordame is probably my favorite. He used to be a really, really cool player to watch. So I think he's still in there as well. Yeah, that's kind of me. Bit of an OG, bit of an old man.
Yeah, there you go. So
big fan.
You even got some ADT chucked on there for you. In fact, one of those games should be starting now. So we have run a little bit over time, but you can get your non-stop tanks grind on. I always love it when the esports broadcast one into another. I think certain esports do that pretty well, obviously over here in tanks, but StarCraft as well, and even CS and stuff like that. You can just never get enough of as a viewer, Cthulhu, on some of these games.
Yeah, look, I'm very much keen to get some JPL action in me. I mean, I've been genuinely enjoying The way how the Japanese team's been able to, pull out some, different strats. Let's call it that, really, comparative to what we've seen so far from ANZPL. Plus, I mean, the general designs of some of their camos just crispy.
Well, I'll definitely be keeping a close eye because I know that Jordan, he just never gets enough esports. I see him finish a cast and he's instantly on the phone watching usually a different esport, but sometimes it might be the same esport.
Sometimes during the cast.
Yeah, sometimes during the
when
cast,
you're on the
don't-
grind, you got to
yeah.
be on the grind. You gotta make sure that you're keeping up to date with everything that's going on.
Is that the win condition for the Ivory Tower?
I have been known to watch a World of Tanks broadcast that I'm not involved in when I'm casting a different title, just because I like to keep up to date with what's going on. No one grinds harder than me. That's why we're at the top.
Unfortunately, when you cover like about 15
Just not a
different
predictions.
games, 15 different games, yeah, your predictions might suffer, but also you do have to kind of multitask a bit and watch several different broadcasts. However, I'm not going to force the viewers to do that any longer. Obviously, if you're keen for some more Tanks action, go and check out what's going on in the JPL. They've still got a couple more games coming up, but at least for down here in the ANZ Premier League, that's going to be it for tonight's games. We've got a couple more games coming up as we head towards the end of the season, and then after that, we're going to be heading into finals and playoffs. So thanks for joining us, boys, and go get some sleep or check out some more games. We'll see you next time.